Chapter 110, 000 Feedback System. 5. Are you willing to be my disciple? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. 1. They were on Lingju Peak of the Qingyan clan. Yizan had asked a handyman disciple in front of him the question. The handyman disciple was a young girl. Her small face was red, and her hair was tied up in a bun. 3. Her big eyes were filled with shock. Yizan was the youngest elder of the Qingyan clan, the favored son of the heavens. Meanwhile, her natural talent was extremely weak. She could not understand why an elder of the Qingyan clan would want to take her, someone so weak that she could only qualify to be a handyman disciple, in as a personal disciple. Why did Elder Yizan want to take her in as a personal disciple, or as a handyman disciple? The young girl Lu Yanren's mind was blank, so she could not give him any reaction. At this moment, Yizan's face was pale and somewhat anxious. He was facing a crisis of life and death. He had just transmigrated here, but he had already been poisoned, and he only had 4 hours left to live. Fortunately, when he was on the verge of despair, the system did not disappoint. The system was called the Disciple Feedback System. If he gave his disciple something, he would receive it back severalfold as feedback. 7. Thus multiple varied from 2 to 10,000-fold. 1. For example, if Yizan helped a disciple improve his comprehension, his own comprehension would increase by 2 to 10,000 points. 3. The specific multiple varied each time. The higher the multiple, the lower the probability of it occurring. 2. After gaining this system and understanding its functions, Yizan knew that he had found a way to escape the jaws of death. The most important thing for him to do now was to take in a disciple. Because this system was called the Disciple Feedback System, he could only get feedback if he gave a disciple something. That was why Yizan wanted to take in this handyman disciple, Lu Yanren. At this moment, Lu Yanren was still in shock. Because in this world where the strong were respected, it was almost impossible to be taken in as a disciple by the strong if one did not have a talent or a strong background. Therefore, Lu Yanren could not believe her eyes and ears right now. She thought she might have wished to be taken in so badly that she had started to hallucinate. She could not help but laugh at herself. She did not expect to go so crazy she would begin hallucinating. She reached up with her small hand and pinched her cheek. It hurt. Now, Lu Yanren was really confused. It seemed that this was not an illusion. What? You don't want to be my disciple? Yizan's words were clear in Lu Yanren's ears. Yizan looked at Lu Yanren, who was across from him, somewhat helplessly. Just now, he had screened the disciples he knew in the Qingyan clan in his mind. He then realized that he really knew too little about the Qingyan clan was really too little. 1. Although he knew some disciples with outstanding talent in the clan, most of them had already been accepted as disciples by other elders. After thinking about it for a while, he could only think of one suitable candidate. That was the handyman disciple in front of him, Lu Yanren. 1. Of course, the reason he chose Lu Yanren was not that the girl had exquisite and beautiful facial features, as well as a graceful and sinewy body. 7. It was because Lu Yanren was usually responsible for cleaning the area near Yizan's residence on Lingju Peak. Since he saw her often, even if Yizan did not pay much attention to her, he still had a good impression of her. Moreover, Yizan occasionally noticed that Lu Yanren was very diligent with her work. 1. She cleaned every area she worked on thoroughly. Along with that, as soon as she finished her work, she would immediately go to practice and not waste any time. Because Lu Yanren's talent was very average and her status was low, she had no chance to come into contact with the Qingyan clan's core techniques. However, she still worked hard. This perseverance moved Yizan. It was because of this that Yizan decided that no matter how talented Lu Yanren was, he would take her in as his first disciple. 3. Become Elder Yizan's disciple. Lu Yanren still looked somewhat incredulous. She found it hard to believe that her dream of being taken in as a disciple by a great master would ever actually happen. Yizan's eyes were calm as he looked at Lu Yanren in front of him. The latter suddenly woke up from her daze and immediately kowtowed. Your disciple is willing. She spoke loudly. When she raised her head, her forehead was red and swollen. Lu Yanren completely ignored her red and bumpy forehead. 3. She was already trembling slightly from excitement. All right, Yizan nodded in satisfaction and said softly. All right, since that's the case, from today onwards, you will be my first disciple. On the Tianyuan continent, most masters had to go through a series of complicated steps before taking in a disciple. This was because the entire Tianyuan continent paid great attention to masters. However, there were also some masters who did not like the red tape and would directly appoint disciples. Now that Yizan was on the verge of death, he naturally did not have the mood to think about such complicated procedures. Don't kneel. You can get up. Yizan spoke indifferently. Lu Yanran quickly thanked him and stood up. Yizan looked at Lu Yanran. She was still very young. If Yizan were back in his previous life, she would probably be a girl who had just entered junior high school. At this time, although Lu Yanran had regained some of her consciousness, she was still in a daze. She could not understand how she had so easily become Elder Yizan's disciple. Yizan had been known as the most talented and youngest elder of the Qingyan clan for the past 1,000 years. What had she done to become Elder Yizan's first disciple? The sudden surprise made Lu Yanran unable to wake up. Since you've accepted me as your master, I will give you a pill today. Later, I will go into seclusion. When I come out, I will give you other treasures. Thank you, master, Lu Yanran said in surprise. She knew very well that the pill that Yizan was going to take out was definitely not an ordinary item. As soon as Yizan finished speaking, he took out a fragrant pill from his pocket. In fact, before accepting Lu Yanran as his disciple, Yizan had already thought about this carefully. This was because after he obtained the system, he received a novice reward. The first time he gave his disciple something, he would be rewarded 10,000-fold. With this novice reward, he had already found 2 ways to save himself. One was to give his apprentice cultivation directly, so he could get 10,000 times the feedback. Then, his problem would be solved. Chapter 2. Bestow the pill. However, this path would not be so easy to walk at the moment. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So After all, most of his meridians were broken, and all the bones in his body were even worse off. 4. Under such circumstances, it would probably be impossible for him to transfer his cultivation to his disciple. Moreover, the large amount of cultivation that would be required for this was probably not something his broken body could withstand. In this case, he could only choose the second option. He would give Lu Yanran an antidote. This way, he would definitely obtain a higher quality panacea. Fortunately, the 10,000-fold feedback system was not just a return of quantity. The system would automatically convert the superposition of quantity into an increase in quality as well. Unfortunately, most of the antidote pills in Yizan's interspatial ring had been used up. The only one left was the white pill he had just given to Lu Yanran. This pill was a 3rd-grade soul-returning pill. It was not a precious thing in Yizan's eyes. However, Lu Yanran was staring blankly at the 3rd-grade soul-returning pill in her hand. In her eyes, this pill was extremely precious. After all, a 3rd-grade soul-returning pill could treat the injuries of a master of the core formation realm. How could her master give one to her so easily? Lu Yanran's body trembled slightly. She felt a warm current run through her body. Her master's great love moved her significantly. 3. After Yizan gave her a few more simple instructions, he quickly rushed to his place of seclusion. Just as Yizan was leaving, the system's clear voice rang in his mind. Ding! The host has detected that a 3rd-grade revival pill has been bestowed upon his disciple. After the 10,000-fold feedback, he has obtained a 7th-grade nirvana pill. 5. After hearing the sound, Yizan quickly calmed his heart and looked at the system space. He saw that a purplish-red pill was floating quietly in the system space. Even though Yizan had not taken out the pill yet, he could already smell its pungent medicinal fragrance. Beside the 7th-grade nirvana pill was a row of small words. Yizan focused his gaze and saw that it was the description of the 7th-grade nirvana pill's effect. 7th-grade nirvana pill. A top-tier 7th-grade pill. This pill can only be refined by a top-tier pill master, and even then there is a high failure rate. Not only can this pill cure all injuries and viruses below the 7th grade, but it also has a life and death effect. It can also greatly increase the strength of the user. The power of the pill is divided into 7 segments. After each segment is released, the user's strength will increase rapidly. After the power of the 7th segment is fully released, the user can possess even the power of a king. After reading the explanation of the 7th rank nirvana pill, Yizan's worried heart finally relaxed. With this, he could finally be saved. He threw a token to Lu Yanran and said, "From now on, I will go into seclusion. You will stand guard outside the door. No one can come and disturb me without my prior permission." Yizan had thrown his elder's token to Lu Yanran. As long as he had this token, Even if the master of the Qingyan sect wanted to see him, he would not be able to force his way through to him. After all, the master still had to give face to him, Yi Zan. Yes, master. Lu Yanran held the token with both hands and watched Yi Zan leave respectfully. 7th grade Nirvana pill, I hope you won't disappoint me. After Yi Zan walked into the hall, he closed the door tightly behind him. His body quickly collapsed before he even arrived at the futon. Like an eggplant hit by frost in winter, his entire body was covered in a cold sweat. Just now, in order to maintain his image as an elder, he had deliberately gathered up his own power. As a result, his injuries began to get even more serious. Fortunately, he now had a 7th grade Nirvana pill, so these injuries should not be a problem anymore. He used the last of his strength to take the 7th grade Nirvana pill out of the system space. There were exquisite patterns on the pill. At first glance, one could not see anything special about them. However, as soon as the pill was in his hands, Yi Zan immediately noticed the terrifying energy it contained. Yi Zan did not have time to hesitate for too long before he swallowed it down. He initially thought that the medicinal power of the Nirvana pill would come like a surge of water, but the truth was that after he swallowed it, its medicinal power was like a trickle of water, constantly nourishing his limbs and bones. Yi Zan felt extremely comfortable. The broken meridians and broken bones in his body slowly recovered under the pill's gentle yet powerful medicinal power. While his body was recovering from this medicinal power, it was also becoming stronger than before. The layers of his bones, flesh, and fascia were all undergoing qualitative changes. During this process, Yi Zan paid attention to the minute changes in his body, so he was not able to notice the passage of time. At this time, Lu Yanran was still holding the elder token that Yi Zan had given her, dutifully waiting outside the door. She had already recovered from her initial shock and confusion. She could not help but look at the 3rd grade soul returning pill in her hand. She never expected that Elder Yi Zan would actually give her such a precious pill. To the entire Qingyan sect, a 3rd grade soul returning pill could be considered quite precious. The other elders probably would not be willing to give it to their disciples so easily. However, when her master gave her this pill, he did not seem reluctant at all. Lu Yanran knew very well in her heart that she was only a small-time cultivator who was currently in the refinement state. If she used this soul-returning pill now, it would simply be a waste of a gift from heaven. Therefore, Lu Yanran made up her mind. Unless she encountered a situation where she had no other choice, she absolutely would not use this pill. She carefully put the pill into her pocket. Until now, her heart had not stopped beating wildly. To her, the 3rd grade soul returning pill was something that only core formation realm masters could refine. It was a priceless treasure. On the Tianyuan continent, the cultivation realms of cultivators were ranked from low to high: refinement state, chi transformation state, true essence state, purple spirit state, core formation state, unity state, condensing state, and so on. 3. Within each large stage were 10 small stages. Lu Yanran was only at the 4th stage of the refinement state. 1. For ordinary people, this was already very powerful. However, in the eyes of masters, it was not worth mentioning at all. 1. Chapter 3. Breakthrough. On this continent, those in the refinement state could only bully ordinary people. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. 2. Only after reaching the chi transformation state could one be considered to have a certain level of strength to be able to walk on bodies of water. Of course, the water had to be somewhere where there were no experts around. A cultivator could only become an alchemist after reaching the true essence state. Because in order to refine pills, one needed at least the pure energy of the true essence state. Even after reaching the true essence state, a cultivator could only refine 1st grade pills. Those in the purple spirit state could refine 2nd grade pills, and pills like the 3rd grade soul returning pill could only be refined after reaching the core formation state. For a person like Lu Yanran who was in the refinement state, it would be difficult for her to obtain a 3rd grade elixir even if she spent her entire life working on it. Based on this, it was clear how important the 3rd grade soul returning pill was to her. Just as Lu Yanran was getting lost in a daze, a piercing sound came from afar. With a whoosh, a beautiful figure quickly descended onto the Lingzhu peak. Within the Qingyan sect, the sect master and every elder had their own mountain peak. Elder Yi Zan's Lingzhu peak was his own territory. As Yi Zan did not usually take in disciples, the entire peak was a little deserted. Only a few miscellaneous disciples responsible for Yi Zan's clothing, food, accommodation, and travel would occasionally show up. Lu Yanran soon saw the person who had come to visit. She saw that the person was a woman with a graceful figure and a beautiful appearance. It was none other than the elder of the Qingyan sect, Lin Qing. Lu Yanran's expression was serious. She cupped her fists at Lin Qing according to the sect's etiquette customs. Greetings, Elder Lin Qing. Lin Qing slowly descended from the sky. She looked at Lu Yanran in front of her with confusion. Because at this moment, Lu Yanran was still wearing the uniform of an odd-job disciple. Thus, Lin Qing did not understand. She did not understand why this handyman was not doing anything but instead standing guard outside Elder Yizan's hall. Before Lin Qing could ask, Lu Yanran spoke first. Elder Lin, please stop. Master is currently in seclusion. He cannot be disturbed by anyone. Please forgive him. After hearing Lu Yanran's words, Lin Qing was also shocked. However, she soon saw the elder's token in Lu Yanran's hand. It was Yizan's token. Lin Qing no longer had any doubts about Lu Yanran's words. However, she was still very surprised. Yizan, who had always been focused on his own cultivation, had actually begun to take in disciples. It seemed like his situation was getting a little bad. Thinking of this, Lin Qing's mood could not help but sink. She wondered, could it be that Yizan knew that he was dying, so he chose a disciple at the last minute to pass on his legacy? 1. Although she was a little upset, Lin Qing was not in a hurry to break into the hall. She could still feel traces of fluctuations coming out from the hall. Moreover, it had been Yizan's idea to have Lu Yanran stay here, so she naturally would not rashly barge in. Thus, Lin Qing went to the front of the hall and sat down cross-legged. As an elder of the Qingyan sect, she had naturally also participated in the battle for the treasures of heaven and earth a few days ago. It was during that battle that Yizan was poisoned by the people of the Xuanyan sect with the 5 poison powder. Lin Qing had also gotten slightly injured when she tried to save Yizan, who was being besieged by many experts. However, her injuries were not serious, and she had already fully recovered. Right now, Lin Qing did not know that while Yizan had been poisoned by the 5 poison powder, he had also been poisoned by another highly toxic bone-dissolving powder. If she knew the truth, she would definitely be despairing right now. This was because the bone-dissolving powder was much stronger than the 5 poison powder. It could be said that there was no antidote for the bone-dissolving powder in the entire Great Qian dynasty. The 2 girls, one old and one young, waited in front of Yizan's hall in silence. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. No one else came during this time. During this time, Lu Yanran continued obeying Yizan's orders and did not leave the front of the hall at all. After all, Lu Yanran was only at the 4th stage of the refinement state. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to not eat and drink without her bodily functions being affected. She had not eaten for 2 days and not a single grain of rice was inside her tummy now, which was why her body was beginning to collapse. Lin Qing, who was beside her, was resting with her eyes closed. She had not noticed Lu Yanran's condition. At this moment, a strong wave of aura suddenly came from the hall where Yizan was. Lin Qing, who had been sitting cross-legged in meditation, suddenly opened her eyes. Was that a breakthrough? Lin Qing's face was full of shock. She could clearly sense the strength of the aura coming from the hall. After all, she was a powerhouse in the core formation realm. At this moment, she could clearly feel that the sense of pressure within her body was still increasing. How could this be? The surprise in Lin Qing's eyes did not disappear for a long time. She did not understand why Yizan, who should have been seriously injured and on the verge of death, was suddenly emitting such a powerful aura. Moreover, his aura kept growing more powerful. It was clearly a phenomenon that only occurred after one broke through. Just as Lin Qing felt she could not grow more shocked, 5 more cracks of the sound barrier breaking could be heard in the distance. 1. They came from the other peaks of the Qingyan sect. It was obvious that these 5 people had also been attracted to the astonishing things happening where Yizan was. Soon, 5 figures arrived near Lin Qing. They all stood in the air. All of them looked at the hall which Yizan was in with great shock. The 6 of them all stood in the air. This was something that only core formation realm masters could do. The 5 of them were the sect master, deputy sect master, and elders of the Qingyan sect. The one in the middle was the sect master, Wan Shanhai. 1. The few of them landed and approached the hall where Yizan was. They were like Lin Ying, full of doubts. They all wanted to figure out what had happened to Yizan to make him able to emit such a powerful aura. At this moment, Lu Yanran was standing in front of the hall. When she saw the high-level members of the sect appear, she felt a strong pressure. Despite the pressure, she still forced herself to stop them. Sect Master, Deputy Sect Master, and Elders, please wait. Master is still in seclusion. Please don't disturb him. Lu Yanren was just a servant disciple. It took great courage to be able to say these words in front of so many high-level members of the sect. Lu Yanren's words attracted the gazes of these higher-ups. When they saw her odd-job disciple attire, they were all somewhat displeased. What did you just say? Wan Shanhai focused his gaze on her and coldly asked. Chapter 4. True Core State. Wan Shanhai looked at Lu Yanren coldly with a displeased expression. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. This glance scared Lu Yanren so much that she took a few steps back. She had not swallowed a drop of water for 2 days, and her body was already being pushed to the limit. Now that she was being stared at by so many higher-ups, she could not help but feel flustered. Fortunately, these people did not exert any pressure on Lu Yanren. Her small body definitely would not have been able to withstand it if they did. Wan Shanhai reacted to what Lu Yanren had just said. You just said that he's your master. Then, his gaze drifted to the sect elder token that Lu Yanren was holding tightly in her hand. The word, Yi, on it indicated that it was Yi Zan's elder token. The others reacted quickly and soon understood the current situation. Elder Yi has taken in a disciple. And a servant disciple, at that. Everyone was surprised. Everyone knew very well that Yi Zan, a rare genius of the Qingyan sect, had never bothered with taking in disciples. Usually, he was too busy with his own cultivation and rarely paid attention to outsiders. This was very normal. After all, Yi Zan was still very young. The most important thing for him right now was to raise his cultivation level as quickly as possible. Only when his own cultivation reached a bottleneck would he need to consider taking in disciples and passing on his legacy. However, why would Yi Zan, who had such a distinct personality, suddenly change so drastically and take in a handyman as a disciple? Everyone could not wait to learn Yi Zan's thoughts behind this. Thinking of Lu Yanren's words just now and looking at Yi Zan's elder token in her hand, they all gave up on the idea of barging into the hall. Even though Lu Yanren was just a handyman disciple, now that she was holding Yi Zan's elder token, she could speak for him. And after calming down, everyone could not help but share Lin Qing's thoughts. Everyone felt that it was very likely that Yi Zan knew that he did not have long to live. That was why he had accepted a servant disciple as his disciple in such a hurry. He did not want his legacy to end. Thinking of this, everyone present could not help but allow some of their sorrow to leak through their facial expressions. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with resentment toward the Xuanian sect. If not for the Xuanian sect, Elder Yi Zan would not have fallen into such a state. However, if Yi Zan was really on the verge of death, then why had there been an aura akin to a breakthrough coming from the main hall just now? Although they were extremely confused, these people still waited outside the main hall quietly. No matter what, as long as there was still an aura fluctuation coming out from the hall, it meant that Yi Zan was still alive. Another 2 hours passed. An even more astonishing aura came out of the hall. This aura was much stronger than the one before. Everyone's eyes widened. It's the true core realm. It's indeed the true core realm. This kind of aura is very powerful. What's going on? What's happened to Yi Zan? Everyone's faces were covered with shock and confusion. They could not understand why the hall which Yi Zan was in would emit a pressure that only those in the true core realm could possess. Among the core formation realm were empty core, true core, and golden core. Within empty core, true core, and golden core, there were early, middle, and late stages. With Lu Yanren being so weak, she was already unable to withstand the pressure of those in the true core realm. Just when she felt that her body was about to explode, she suddenly felt her body and mind lighten. It turned out that it was Lin Qing who had made a move and helped her block most of the pressure. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the door to Yi Zan's hall. Everyone wanted to find out what had happened to Yi Zan that allowed him to leap into the true core realm. Lu Yanren's face was also full of shock. She did not know what her master had done. She did not know how terrifying this so-called true core realm could be. However, based on the expressions of the high-level members of the Qingyan sect around her, she could roughly guess that her master had probably broken through to a very terrifying realm. Based on Wan Shanhai and the others' expressions, it was very clear that this was a big deal. Perhaps the true core realm could be seen as a very expert realm within the entire Great Qian dynasty. That was indeed the case. As long as the Golden Core Realm experts were not around, the true Core Realm experts could completely run the Great Qian dynasty completely amok. 4. After Lu Yanran figured it out, she stared unblinkingly at the hall. She really wanted to look through the main door so she could clearly see what was going on inside. The others were just as curious as her and did not understand what had happened. Fortunately, it did not take long for the powerful aura to dissipate. A slender figure walked out of the door. He was handsome and had a strong facial structure. Sect Master, Deputy Sect Master, Elders. The person who had come was Yi Zan. His appearance made everyone's eyes light up. Just now, everyone had still been very confused and suspected that someone else might be in the hall. However, after Yi Zan appeared in front of their eyes, everyone's doubts were completely dispelled. Although they still did not know how Yi Zan escaped death and had benefited from misfortune. This was still a good thing for the Qingyan sect. Elder Yi, why did you? The sect master, Wan Shanhai, looked at Yi Zan in confusion. Right now, he urgently needed an explanation from Yi Zan. It was just a lucky opportunity. I was lucky enough to benefit from misfortune. Yi Zan knew that these people wanted an answer. However, he could not let outsiders know that he had the system. Hearing this, the others all nodded silently. Although Yi Zan did not elaborate, the simple phrase, lucky opportunity, was enough to explain everything. After all, cultivators knew that opportunities could often be unpredictable and wonderful. There were both big and small opportunities. A small opportunity might just be a simple treasure. However, a big opportunity was often an epiphany that could bring about a rapid increase in cultivation. In short, Yi Zan could cover everything up with the word, opportunity. Across the vast and boundless Tianyuan continent, there were cultivators obtaining opportunities of varying sizes all the time. The sect masters and elders of the Qingyan sect had all obtained opportunities of varying sizes during their cultivation process. Therefore, it was not appropriate for them to ask too many questions. Chapter 5. Foolish Disciple. From the looks of it, the opportunity Yi Zan had obtained this time was no small one. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So After all, 2 days ago, everyone knew that Yi Zan had been poisoned and was likely going to die very soon. However, not only was Yi Zan completely cured of the poison now, but he had also made great progress in terms of his strength. Could it be that Yi Zan had obtained a top-tier 4th-grade pill, which was why he had come across such a great opportunity? No one knew that Yi Zan had ingested bone-dissolving powder earlier. Therefore, everyone thought that a 4th-grade pill would be able to dispel the 5 poison powder and give Yi Zan a certain increase in strength. If they were to find out that Yi Zan had taken a 7th-grade pill 2 days ago, everyone would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the floor. At this moment, Wan Shanhai, the sect master of the Qingyan sect, woke up from his initial shock. He laughed heartily and said, "That's great. Now our Qingyan sect has finally gained another true core realm expert." Wan Shanhai was really delighted at Yi Zan's breakthrough. Previously, Qingyan sect only had 2 true core realm experts. They were the sect master, Wan Shanhai, and the deputy sect master. Now that there was another true core realm expert, Yi Zan, this would definitely raise the overall strength of the Qingyan sect. The atmosphere between the higher-ups of the Qingyan sect was relatively harmonious. After all, with a force like theirs, if the higher-ups were not united, the entire sect would quickly fall apart and be replaced by external forces. Therefore, after everyone confirmed that Yi Zan had broken through to the true core realm, everyone stepped forward and congratulated him. Congratulations, 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 fellow Taoist Yi, for successfully breaking through to the true core realm. Everyone present had a joyful look on their faces. At this moment, Lu Yanran was standing far away from them. When she looked at Yi Zan, her eyes were filled with joy. After congratulating Yi Zan, the higher-ups of the Qingyan sect left Lingju Peak one after another. Yi Zan's breakthrough had injected a surge of energy into them. After all, it was not easy for those at their level to have breakthroughs. Now that there was a living example right in front of them, everyone's motivation had been stoked. After everyone left, soon only Yi Zan and Lu Yanran were left on Lingju Peak. You foolish disciple. Yi Zan could tell at a glance that Lu Yanran had been guarding the main hall without eating or drinking for the past 2 days. You're too stupid, he scolded her with some heartache. After hearing Yi Zan's words, Lu Yanran knew that he was feeling heartache for her, so she quickly lowered her head. Yi Zan taking her in as his disciple had happened too suddenly, so Lu Yanran had simply been following his instructions to the word for the past 2 days. She had been very afraid. She was afraid that if she made a slight mistake, Yi Zan would not want her anymore. She knew very well that her talent was lacking, and in theory, she was not worthy of being elder Yi Zan's disciple. It was precisely because of that she cherished this opportunity so much. She needed to become strong and avenge her family. 7. Yi Zan walked to Lu Yanran's side and rubbed her head with his hand, feeling sorry for her. If I didn't come out of seclusion for a long time, were you going to starve to death here? Yi Zan did not know whether to call Lu Yanran stupid or loyal. In fact, there was food and drink not far from where they currently were. If Lu Yanran went to eat something, although she would have to leave the hall for a short time, the risk would still be very low. Yi Zan said, "Go back and rest well. Tomorrow, I will give you a new opportunity." "Yes, sir." Lu Yanran nodded frantically and staggered away. After Lu Yanran left, Yi Zan turned his attention back onto himself. He could see that the true core in his body contained extremely terrifying energy. He felt that his true core was like a miniature planet. At this moment, as long as he willed it, he could easily mobilize the terrifying energy. A mere empty core realm expert, if placed on Earth, could be called a humanoid missile. Meanwhile, a true core realm expert was more than 10 times stronger than an empty core realm expert. Is this real life? 3. Yi Zan muttered to himself. He was very surprised at how terrifying he was. With his current terrifying body, if he were still in his previous life, nothing could hurt him besides nuclear weapons. However, he knew very well that there were countless people like him across the entire Tianyuan continent. 3. Compared to other masters, he was nothing. Even within the entire Great Qian dynasty, Yi Zan was still not the strongest around. However, under normal circumstances, he should be able to do whatever he wanted. In his body, besides the true core energy, there was also a purple pill that was slowly rotating. This was the 7th grade nirvana pill he had consumed. After removing the 5 poison powder and bone dissolving powder as well as breaking through, only 1/7 of the 7th grade nirvana pill's energy had been consumed. The rest of the pill's energy was still being stored in his body. Yi Zan could feel that after absorbing all the energy of the pill, his strength had definitely experienced a tremendous change. The guy from the Xuanian sect. Yi Zan muttered to himself. His current strength was more than enough for him to go and kill those who had surrounded and attacked him just a few days ago. However, he was not in a hurry. He could still make a long-term plan right now. After all, within the Great Qian dynasty, the overall strength of the Xuanian sect was ranked 2nd. Their sect had Golden Core Realm Masters in charge. Moreover, the Xuanian sect should have more than 20 True Core Realm and Empty Core Realm Masters altogether. Yi Zan was very clear on the fact that it was not too safe for him to rashly go and kill the other party now. Until he achieved the Golden Core Realm or even the strength of the completion of the Core Formation Realm, he could not be too confident. If he was still the previous Yi Zan, he would have a long way to go before he could obtain the strength of the completion of the Core Formation Realm. However, for Yi Zan, who had the 10,000-fold feedback system, the day was not too far away. He felt that he should first extract all the rewards he could get from Lu Yanran, then take in a few more disciples. The next morning, Lu Yanran arrived at Lingzhu Peak very early. After resting well the previous night, she finally recovered. Chapter 6. Spiritual Power Infusion. When Lu Yanran stepped onto Lingzhu Peak, she had a mixed expression on her face. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. She was full of excitement but also a little nervous. Master. As soon as Lu Yanran arrived on the peak, she saw that Yi Zan was already waiting for her in the courtyard. She hurriedly bowed to him. Now that you have become my disciple, you don't need to wear the kind of clothes handyman disciples wear. You can go to the Cantonese school later and get a set of clothing exclusive to personal disciples. 4. Yi Zan looked at Lu Yanran's plain clothes and immediately told her she could change them. As you command, Master. Lu Yanran said obediently. In the Qingyan sect, disciples were divided into different levels. From the lowest ranking to the highest ranking, there were handyman disciples, exterior disciples, interior disciples, and personal disciples. Disciples of different levels also had different clothing. Hearing this, Yi Zan could not help but smile and nod. He soon spoke again. Today, I will open up your meridians and pour wisdom into your body. 3. Yi Zan's seemingly casual words stunned Lu Yanran. Lu Yanren's body could not help but begin to tremble in the next second. Is what master is saying true? Is he really going to pour his spiritual power into my body? 7. Although her strength was weak, she was certainly not unknowledgeable. After she finished her cultivation for the day, she would go to the scripture depository within the sect to read books. She had used up almost all of her allowed time there as a handyman disciple. It was because of this that Lu Yanren knew exactly what spiritual power being poured into a body meant. In layman's terms, a cultivator with a high cultivation base would give their cultivation base to some weaker cultivators. In other words, it meant that the spiritual power that they had painstakingly cultivated could be given to others for free. Generally speaking, the spiritual power after being enlightened would be completely lost, and the initial cultivator with a high cultivation base would only be able to replenish this part of their lost spiritual power through cultivation in the future. It was a purely altruistic concept, and almost no cultivator actually chose to do it. After all, for cultivators, time was extremely precious. The cultivation in their bodies had been obtained through arduous work. Unless one was a fool, otherwise, no one would give their cultivation to others for free. Even if they were blood relatives, it was very rare for spiritual power to be infused into someone else. Under normal circumstances, only cultivators who were in a desperate situation and knew that they were doomed would impart their spiritual power to their loved ones or to extremely important people. No matter what, this imparting was a great favor, almost equivalent to raising someone ever since they were a baby. It was precisely because of this that Lu Yanren felt extremely shocked. She was completely stunned and could not think straight. Spiritual power infusion. If Yi Zan really did this, her strength would be greatly improved. Even if her aptitude was average, her cultivation would still undergo a tremendous change after that. Master. For a moment, Lu Yanren's voice choked with sobs, and her eyes turned red as she hid them. Yi Zan treated her so well. How could she repay him? Moreover, it was already enough of a blessing to be his personal discipline. What had she done to deserve even more special treatment from him? No matter what you did before, now that you're my disciple, you naturally won't be mistreated. Yi Zan said calmly. In the eyes of outsiders, spiritual energy installation was a bad thing that did not give one any personal benefits. Basically, no cultivator would ever choose to do it. However, for Yi Zan, this was completely beneficial and without harm. After all, he had an apprentice feedback system. Every bit of spiritual power he taught would be returned at the lowest multiple. The more apprentices he took in, the higher the amount of feedback he would receive. In short, he would not be at a disadvantage. Of course, Yi Zan would not randomly take in apprentices because of this. Although he did not value talent, he still attached great importance to the character of his apprentices. Follow me. Yi Zan looked at Lu Yanren indifferently and then walked into the hall. Yes, master. Lu Yanren held back her tears that were about to fall and followed Yi Zan with a face full of gratitude. Since her parents passed away, no one had ever treated her so well. She did not expect to meet such a good master in her lifetime. Soon, Lu Yanren came to the hall, still behind Yi Zan. The hall was very wide. There were 5 or 6 futons inside it. This was where Yi Zan usually secluded himself. Then, under Yi Zan's signal, Lu Yanren came to a futon and slowly sat down. Yi Zan sat down behind her. At the same time, a few lines of words appeared in Yi Zan's field of vision. Of course, no one other than him else could see this virtual font. Comprehension value. 234. Innate bone value. 25. Kendama body. Not yet activated, can be activated with star sword grass. 7. This was the function of the disciple feedback system. He could see clearly his disciple's talent. This so-called talent referred to the cultivator's comprehension value and innate bone value. Comprehension value, in layman's terms, was the cultivator's understanding of heaven and earth. The higher the comprehension, the higher the cultivator's understanding. Thus, their cultivation speed would be extremely fast. Not only that, but it would also be of great help to the cultivator's later comprehension of power, such as sword intent. Cultivators with poor comprehension would have to spend more time comprehending the power of heaven and earth, and their success rate would still be extremely low. The innate bone value referred to a cultivator's physique. After all, everyone had a different physique. Some cultivators were naturally very friendly to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With the help of the system, they could cultivate twice as much as others with half the energy. Other cultivators might have to spend 3 to 4 years to break through, but they would only need a few months to do so. Your bone and comprehension value are pretty average. Yi Zan could not help but exclaim upon seeing this. No wonder Lu Yanran worked so hard. Her current cultivation was only at the 4th stage of the refinement state. When Yi Zan saw Lu Yanran's special physique, he could not help but narrow his eyes. Presumably, activating the Kendama body would greatly improve Lu Yanran's bone value. It seemed that he would need to spend some time to find this sword star grass. After all, after Lu Yanran activated her special constitution, he could also receive some feedback points. Abandon concentration and immerse your spiritual energy in the present. Just as Lu Yanran's face filled with nervousness, Yi Zan's voice rang out. Lu Yanran hurriedly closed her eyes. Her entire essence, qi, and spirit instantly gathered together, slowly absorbing the spiritual energy flowing between heaven and earth into her. Buzz. In the next second, Yi Zan's palm suddenly pressed against Lu Yanran's back. Spiritual qi surged out of his body and slowly poured into her core. Master's power so terrifying. When Lu Yanran felt this vast power, she could barely calm herself down. Chapter 7. One disciple is not enough. Quickly restrain your mind and carefully comprehend my power. Absorb it all. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Just as Lu Yanran was getting lost in a daze, Yi Zan's voice sounded again. Her eyes grew a little ashamed before she quickly stabilized her mind. However, because the gap between their realms was too big, Yi Zan was forced to slow down the speed of his transmission of spiritual power. After all, Lu Yanran's meridians were too weak. If too much spiritual power was transferred to her at once, it was very likely that her meridians would be damaged. As he transmitted this spiritual power, Yi Zan also paid attention to Lu Yanran's condition. After all, spiritual power infusion was no small matter. He had to constantly control his speed of transmission. This was closely related to Lu Yanran's condition. If her meridians were saturated, then he would have to reduce his speed. Of course, even if Lu Yanran could completely withstand his power, he could not blindly output all the spiritual power in his body. After all, he could not confirm the exact multiple of the system's feedback. Although the probability of a high multiple was very low, if it really happened, it would be a disaster for Yi Zan. 1. The reason was very simple. If Lu Yanran withstood all of Yi Zan's power and suddenly received hundreds or even thousands of times the feedback, Yi Zan's current meridians would definitely not be able to take it. Even if Yi Zan barely pulled through this terrifying force, his meridians would still suffer a lot, and it might very well affect his foundation in the future. This one disciple isn't enough. I have to take in more disciples. When the time comes, I'll use each of them. With enough time, I'll definitely break through very quickly. Yi Zan continued to transfer his spiritual power to Lu Yanran as he thought about this seriously. If he irrigated all his disciples with his spiritual power, even if he received a high rate of feedback, he would be able to easily withstand the power and not damage his foundation. After all, if he had very few disciples, even if the rate was high, it would be within his tolerance range. Moreover, he could also find some more disciples to help him out. With that, he would be able to have many breakthroughs in a very short period of time, and his future would be set. With Yi Zan's surging spiritual power, Lu Yanran soon broke through in her cultivation. After becoming a cultivator, the first realm one would face was the refinement realm. Across the vast and boundless Tianyuan continent, everyone had innate qi in their bodies, but its location was obscure. If one wanted to become a true cultivator, one had to locate the innate qi in their body, then slowly circulate it around their body according to the cultivation circulation technique. After performing the cultivation circulation technique, the innate qi in the cultivator's body would gradually grow stronger. This would then evolve into a more innate strength, which would then strengthen the cultivator's meridians and flesh. The refinement state was divided into 10 stages. Every time a cultivator broke through a small stage, the strength of the qi and force in their body would double, and their physicality would also be strengthened. When the cultivator's core and meridians were filled with the strength of their qi, it meant that the cultivator's cultivation had broken through to the 10th stage of the refinement state. If a cultivator at such a level was on Earth, they would have power akin to a transformer. They would be able to tear apart a small building with just their bare hands. When the energy filled a cultivator's core, their spiritual power would completely penetrate their meridians. From then on, the cultivator would be able to sense the spiritual power that existed between heaven and earth. Thus, using the cultivation method taught by the sect, the spiritual power between heaven and earth would be absorbed into one's core. This state was called qi transformation state. Compared to the previous chi transformation force, the spiritual power flowing between heaven and earth was undoubtedly of a higher level, and it had a stronger effect on the cultivator's physique. After absorbing enough spiritual power of heaven and earth, one could even expand the space in one's core. The chi transformation state also had 10 realms. Yi Zan's current realm was the true core realm. The power in his body was of a higher level than the spiritual power of heaven and earth, so there was no need to say anything more. He transferred his power to Lu Yanran. The speed of the realm breakthrough that he catalyzed within her could not be imagined. 4th stage of the refinement state. 5th stage. 6th stage. Lu Yanran felt like her cultivation was going through some crazy breakthroughs. The most important thing was that the power she obtained was not superficial at all and had no effect on her foundation. The reason for this was very simple. When Lu Yanran broke through a minor stage, Yi Zan would carefully compress the power in her body and use his spiritual power to stabilize her foundation. For a moment, Lu Yanran's heart was filled with gratitude. In the entire Qingyan sect, which cultivator's master would ever do such a thing? Forget the Qingyan sect. She had read stories of cultivators in ancient books and had never come across such a selfless teacher before. However, it was also possible that she did not have too much experience and had not seen all kinds of things, but no matter what, her heart was still filled with gratitude for Yi Zan. After I get revenge for my family, I will serve my master for the rest of my life. 4. This young girl, who was in the prime of her life, silently made a vow in her heart. 1. Yi Zan did not know what Lu Yanran was thinking, but he was very serious about transferring his own power to her. Soon, Lu Yanran was breaking through at a speed visible to the naked eye. The 7th stage of the refinement state. 8th stage. 9th stage. 10th stage. When the power of Qi ran through Lu Yanran, her meridians were instantly opened up. At the same time, she could feel the spiritual power flowing between heaven and earth. Yi Zan instantly increased the speed of transmission of spiritual power. He used his own power to guide the power in Lu Yanran's body, slowly circulating it and absorbing the spiritual power flowing between heaven and earth through her. The 1st stage of the Qi transformation state. The 2nd stage of the Qi transformation state. The 3rd stage of the Qi transformation state. One was very serious in transmitting his spiritual power, while the other was very serious in refining the former's spiritual power. This pair did not notice the passage of time at all. When Lu Yanran entered the 8th stage of the Qi transformation state, the speed of her breakthrough also slowly slowed down. Yi Zan also noticed the change. It was obvious that the spiritual power infusion was about to reach its limit. Of course, this was related to Lu Yanran's bones. If Lu Yanran's bones were stronger, she might be able to accept more power. Soon, after Lu Yanran's cultivation entered the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state, Yi Zan stopped the transmission of power. If he continued to transfer his power, Lu Yanran would naturally break through again, but this would damage her foundation and affect her meridians. Although he wanted more feedback points, he would not ruin his disciple's future because of this. Chapter 8. The kind that comes once a month. 7. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Lu Yanran slowly opened her eyes. After sensing the surging power in her body, her eyes grew extremely excited. She never thought that she would one day break through from the 4th stage of the strength training state to the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state. This was simply unimaginable. She felt like she could totally beat up hundreds of clones of her previous self without breaking a sweat. Most importantly, not only had her cultivation crossed over into the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state, but her foundation was also extremely stable without the slightest bit of weakness. The most important thing for her to do now was to completely familiarize herself with the power in her body. However, because her foundation was extremely stable, Lu Yanran only needed to spend a few days to completely grasp the power in her body. Ding! Because the host has been transferring cultivation power to his disciple for a month, he has received 15 times the feedback. Critical hit. Congratulations, the host has obtained 450 days worth of cultivation. 2. The system's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Zan's mind. Rumble. In an instant, the power contained in Yi Zan's core skyrocketed. He was now only half a step away from the middle stage of the true core state. It's so nice cheating. The speed at which my cultivation breaks through is amazing. Yi Zan noticed the changes in his body, and his eyes could not help but shine with a golden light. He could not help but smile. With his current strength, he only needed to spend a moment to completely grasp his new level of power. With 450 days worth of cultivation, after deducting the loss of a month from the transmission of power, he had profited with 420 extra days of cultivation. 3. With just one spiritual power transmission, he had gained more than a year's worth of cultivation. I didn't expect that 400 days of cultivation wouldn't be able to help me reach the next state. The further I get, the harder it is for me to break through. Thinking of this, Yizan could not help but sigh. At his current state, 1 day of cultivation gained through the system was equivalent to 1 day of cultivation gained from closed-door training. Due to the difference in states, the amount of cultivation obtained was also different. After all, although it was the same amount of cultivation done in 1 day, the cultivation of the Qi transformation state and the true essence state were completely different. To give an example, if Lu Yanran wanted to get to the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state, it would have taken her at least 6 to 7 years to break through with her own efforts. 1. However, with the transfer of Yizan's spiritual power, she only needed to spend a month to reach the true essence state. From now on, I will irrigate your spiritual power every month. Yizan stood up and said to Lu Yanran. Now that he had tasted the sweetness of spiritual power infusion, how could he miss this opportunity? Moreover, if he took in 2 disciples and irrigated his spiritual power once, he would be able to immediately enter the middle stage of the true essence state. What? Lu Yanran, who was still trying to control her new power, was stunned. Spiritual power infusion once a month. Was Master serious? Lu Yanran was petrified. Yizan's methods shocked her. Whether it was the 3rd-grade soul returning pill or this spiritual power infusion, he had completely exceeded her expectations. Lu Yanran had indeed fantasized about 1 day becoming a disciple of a master cultivator. However, she had never dared to imagine that she would receive such treatment. Yizan's words almost scared her silly. Spiritual power infusion once a month. Even her own father would never be so good to her, right? 1. Master, For a moment, Lu Yanran's eyes could not help but redden. 2 streams of clear tears flowed down her beautiful face. You don't have to be so touched. If you slack off with your cultivation because of this, you won't be able to enjoy such treatment in the future. Yizan looked at Lu Yanran, who was moved to tears, and spoke slowly. However, he was somewhat helpless himself. After all, he was no selfless saint. Infusing Lu Yanran with his own cultivation was just to obtain feedback points from the system. He would not do something that would not benefit him. Of course, he also knew what the infusion of spiritual energy in the Tianyuan continent represented. Normally, no father would do this for even their own child. After all, the cultivation lost with infusion was permanent. It could only be recovered through cultivation from scratch. On Tianyuan continent, the strong preyed on the weak, and the strong ruled. No cultivator would selflessly donate their cultivation. Yizan's methods had undoubtedly surpassed an ordinary master-disciple relationship. Even partners might never be so nice to each other. Just one infusion of spiritual power had already touched Lu Yanran so much, let alone the future monthly infusions. Bam! Lu Yanran suddenly knelt down in front of Yizan, pressing her pure white forehead hard against the ground. I understand Master's kindness, and I will definitely remember Master's kindness after my rebirth. I will definitely serve Master well for the rest of my life. Lu Yanran's body trembled slightly as she said this, her eyes filled with determination. Other than her parents, she had never had anyone treat her so well before. Lu Yanran's story was very tragic. She used to live in a small mountain village and had no worries in life. However, one day, bandits suddenly attacked her village. 2. The bandits cruelly massacred the entire village. She was one of the lucky survivors. After going through all kinds of hardships, she finally joined the Qingyan sect and became a handyman disciple. However, because she did not have a good backer in the sect, and because she had a strong constitution, Lu Yanran was subjected to endless looks of disdain and bullying. Although she did not seem to care much on the surface, she felt extremely wronged in her heart. Every night when she was falling asleep, she would suffer alone. Lu Yanran had sworn back then that she would work hard to cultivate and become a disciple of a senior with a high cultivation. She would learn how to kill those bandits. 1. However, she knew very well that her innate ability was very mediocre. It was almost impossible for her to become a disciple of a senior in the sect. Just when she thought that she would only be a handyman disciple for the rest of her life, she met Yizan. Yizan was like a beam of light, shining brightness into her dark life and bringing her out of her shell. Silly girl, don't kneel when you see Master again in the future. Yizan reached out and gently lifted Lu Yanran up. A gentle force immediately helped her up, and even Yizan's voice grew gentle. I have something to tell you, master. Lu Yanren wiped the tears off her face and said to Yizan. Chapter 9. Old Feud. What's the matter? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. Hearing this, Yizan could not help but raise his gaze and look at Lu Yanren in confusion. My real name is not Lu Yanren. My real name is Yu. Lu Yanren revealed the secret hidden in her mind. It was obvious in Lu Yanren's heart that Yizan was already a person worthy of her full trust. Otherwise, she would not have revealed a secret that she had kept hidden for so many years. Yizan's eyes slowly turned cold. He never expected his disciple to have such a tragic backstory. 3. Lu Yanren had lived in an ordinary small mountain village. Most of the villagers were ordinary people who had not practiced before. There were only a few cultivators who practiced at the Qi transformation state, but their cores were only at the 3rd or 4th stage. The villagers' names were simple and plain. At that time, Lu Yanren's name had been Yu. Although the villagers did not have much money, they were still self-sufficient. The families were all quite happy. However, this peace was ruined one day by a group of bandits who appeared out of nowhere. These bandits robbed the entire village and took away all its young and beautiful girls. Back then, Lu Yanren had only been 10 years old. Because she and her father had been cutting firewood on a mountain not far from the village, she was lucky enough to escape this calamity. When they returned to the village, the bandits had already massacred everyone. The surviving villagers had left, and the village was a sea of blood. They thought that the bandits would not return. They did not expect them to come back again after resting for a while. Not only did they rob the villagers of their money and food, but they even slaughtered everyone they could get their hands on. 2. Paying with the price of her father's life, Lu Yanren escaped to the Netherworld Forest. The Netherworld Forest was filled with all sorts of powerful beasts, so the bandits did not chase her into it. Lu Yanren was lucky to survive. However, Lu Yanren's parents were not so lucky and were killed at the hands of the bandits. Lu Yanren witnessed all of this with her own eyes from the forest. One could imagine how much her heart had ached back then. Up until now, Lu Yanren still vaguely remembered her father's final words before death. You must live on. Don't avenge us. As long as you live a good life, Dad and Mom can die without regrets. However, how could she not avenge her parents? Back then, she did not even have the strength to tie a chicken up. She had not yet stepped into the path of cultivation. Her father naturally did not want her to take revenge and lose her life in vain. Perhaps it was God's blessing that although the Netherworld Forest was filled with powerful demon beasts, Lu Yanren had passed through without trouble. It was after Lu Yanren left the Netherworld Forest that she successfully entered the Qingyan sect by chance. In the beginning, with Lu Yanren's talent and innate ability, she was simply unable to become a disciple of the sect. At the time, the manager in charge of accepting disciples had looked at Lu Yanren's tattered clothes and the bloodstains on her face and could not help but feel sympathetic. 2. It was also because of this that Lu Yanren successfully became a handyman disciple of the Qingyan sect. 2. After Lu Yanren told her story, she could not help but get lost in the memories of the accident back then. She fell into an extremely sad mood. It had been 2 years since her parents died tragically at the hands of the bandits. Every night, when it was quiet, she would dream of her parents' tragic death. The image of the village would appear in her mind unprompted, like a nightmare. During these 2 years, Lu Yanren had no one to talk to about it. Only she could lick the wounds left in her memory. However, today, she had met the kindest person in the world to her. She loved him just as much as her parents. As tears welled up in Lu Yanren's eyes, a broad and warm hand came to rest on her shoulder. You were once you, and you will still be you in the future. You're my disciple. No matter what difficulties you encounter, there's no need to hide your name. Aren't they just a mere mountain bandits? I'll accompany you to meet them now. You can personally avenge the village and your parents. 2. Lu Yanren's tearful face slowly lifted. Hearing Yizan's domineering words and looking at his handsome face, she felt warmth in her heart. It was also at this moment that the grievance in Yu's heart could no longer be suppressed. Her tears started to fall like raindrops. Before today, she could only bear the grievance by herself and force a smile in front of others. However, from this moment onward, she had someone to talk to, a master who was like family. Master, Yu threw herself into Yizan's arms, her tears falling like rain. Yizan gently patted Yu's head. His palm contained warm power, slowly calming Yu's emotions. This little girl was only 12 years old, but she bore the deep hatred of the entire village and her parents within herself. Life was indeed hard on her. It was also because of Yizan's spiritual power that Yu had completely trusted him and told him her secret. 1. Of course, to Yizan, Yu was also someone very special. After all, she was his first disciple. How could he bear to see his disciple suffer such a grievance? Moreover, this was a blood feud involving her parents. Perhaps those bandits were particularly fierce when compared to ordinary people, but in Yizan's eyes, they were just small ants. In 3 days, we'll set off. Seeing that Yu's mood had slowly calmed down, Yizan spoke. Yes, master. Yu nodded obediently. Then, Yizan stretched out his hand and gently tapped on Yu's forehead. In an instant, core cultivation methods and martial techniques related to the Qingyan sect entered Yu's mind. Ding. Due to the mid-grade black-grade martial technique, Windstorm Sword technique, that the host has imparted to his disciple, a random 10-fold feedback critical hit has been obtained. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the high-grade black-grade martial technique, Windstorm Slash. Ding. Due to the mid-grade black-grade martial technique, Rampart Sword technique, that the host imparted to his disciple, a random 20-fold feedback critical hit has been obtained. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the high-grade black-grade martial technique, 3 feet sword defense. 1. Ding. Due to the high-grade black-grade martial technique, sword spirit art, that the host imparted to his disciple, a random 100-fold feedback critical hit has been obtained. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the low-grade earth-grade martial technique, sword defense lightning technique. The system's voice sounded in Yizan's mind. Chapter 10. More critical hits. The martial arts that Yizan taught you represented attack power, defense power, and the core cultivation methods of the sect. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Most importantly, these represented the highest level of Yizan's martial arts. Across the entire Tianyuan continent, whether it was martial arts or cultivation methods, from low to high level, they were divided into the grades of yellow grade, black grade, earth grade, heaven grade, saint grade, and emperor grade. Each grade was then divided into top grade, high grade, mid grade, and low grade. The previous martial technique feedback was not uncommon, but it surprised Yizan that one of the pieces of feedback was so powerful that it had allowed him to directly obtain a low-grade earth-grade cultivation method. As everyone knew, under the condition of equality in talent and innate ability, the higher the rank of the cultivation method that one used, the faster one's cultivation speed would be. Yizan had imparted some martial arts to Yu. Since the type of martial arts he imparted already had their feedback returned, there was no feedback for the martial arts he imparted later on. Moreover, the martial arts that Yizan had imparted afterward were mostly yellow-grade martial arts. Although their quality was not high, it was extremely well suited for Qi transformation state cultivators to practice with. Only when Yu's realm broke through to the true essence state or the higher purple spirit state could she truly unleash the power of the black-grade martial arts. I'll give you some more pills. Just as Yu was thinking about martial arts and the new techniques she had learned, Yizan's voice rang out again. He spread out his palm, and 3 pills suddenly appeared in it. As he had already given her a 3rd-grade soul-returning pill, Yizan chose pills with other attributes this time. One of the pills was called the True Essence Pill. It was a rare pill that could help cultivators condense the true essence in their core. It was considered a high-value supplementary pill. The second pill was called the Poison Pill. The pill contained a lethal poison that could corrode a cultivator's reinforcements. It was best used to deal with enemies at the true essence state. The other pill was called State Breaking Pill. It was the pill that peak Qi transformation state cultivators used to enter the true essence state. In the next second, the 3 pills in Yizan's hand turned into a stream of light and landed on Yu's palm. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a true essence pill, 1st grade, the host has received a 3-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations, the host has received a body refining pill, 1st grade. 3. Ding. As the host has gifted his disciple a poison pill, 1st grade, he has received a random 5-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations, the host has received a black poison pill, 1st grade. Ding. As the host has gifted his disciple a state-breaking pill, 1st grade, he has received a random 10-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations, the host has received an energy-breaking pill, 2nd grade. It was obvious that the feedback critical hit from imparting pills was very ordinary. Well, you don't have a storage ring yet, right? I'll give you mine. Yizan looked at Yu as he reached into his pocket and spoke. Master, this isn't. Hearing this, Yu was about to refuse. After all, a storage ring was extremely precious. Even as an elder of the Qingyan sect, Yizan only had one ring. How could he give it to her? However, Yizan did not give Yu the chance to refuse. The storage ring in Yizan's hand instantly turned into a stream of light and appeared on Yu's hand. Of course, most of the things in the original storage ring had already been transferred to the system storage space. All that was left inside were pills and some things he did not need. This was also an experiment Yizan was doing. He planned to see if he could get a critical feedback attack by giving his disciple a storage ring. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a storage ring, 350 cubic feet, you will receive a random 5-fold critical hit feedback. Congratulations, the host has obtained a storage ring, 1765 cubic feet. 2. The system's voice rang in Yizan's mind again. Yizan hurriedly opened his newly obtained storage space but saw that there were no pills there. He was thinking about whether putting some pills in the storage space as a gift would give him a corresponding critical hit, but he did not expect the system to not even give him the chance to try. Now that I've given you cultivation methods and some martial arts techniques, all you need now is a weapon. How about this? I'll give you a Qingyan sword. Yizan waved his sleeve, and a Qingyan sword filled with sharp sword chi suddenly appeared in the air. 1. This Qingyan sword has been by my side for 5 years. It's a powerful high-grade spiritual artifact. From today onwards, it's yours. Yizan stretched out his hand and gently tapped it. The Qingyan sword bloomed with sharp sword chi, then turned into a stream of light and landed in front of Yu. Master, seeing this, Yu's eyelids could not help but flutter. She did not know how to reply. Facing her master, who doted on her so much and did not hide anything from her, she knew that no words of gratitude would be enough to express her appreciation. Yizan's attitude towards imparting knowledge was immovable. She could only choose to accept it. Although words could not express the gratitude in her heart, she would use her own actions to express her gratitude to her master. Ding. Due to the host gifting his disciple a Qingyan sword, high-grade spiritual artifact, a random 102-fold feedback critical hit is obtained. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Cold Light Ice Soul Sword, low-grade magic artifact. The system's voice sounded in Yizan's mind. A long sword filled with ice-cold power appeared in the system's storage space. It's actually a magic artifact. Hearing this, Yizan's eyes could not help but light up. A magic weapon was much more powerful than spiritual chi, and it would also help him improve much more. 3. On the Tianyuan continent, a cultivator's weapon could be of the grade spirit grade, magic grade, mystic grade, or saint grade. Each weapon's grade was divided into top grade, high grade, mid grade, and low grade. Although the Cold Light Ice Soul Sword he obtained was only a low-grade magic weapon, its power was far superior to a top-grade spirit weapon. 6. Yizan had wanted to get a weapon with strong defense, but unfortunately, he did not have a defensive weapon on him, so he could only wait. Alright, you, go to the sect's administrative office now and collect the clothes for a personal disciple like yourself. After settling everything, you can move to Lingzhu Peak. If you run into any cultivation matters, you can come and consult me anytime. In 3 days, we'll set off. What you did not know was that Yizan wanted to use these 3 days to prepare a special gift for her. Chapter 11. Promise. As you command, Master. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After you put the equipment into her storage space, she bowed respectfully to Yizan before leaving. After you left, Yizan began to take stock of his previous gains. He had already given away all the things that he could give to you. In general, his gains were quite good. The most surprising gains were the spiritual artifacts and cultivation methods. The sword defense lightning technique was a low-grade earth-grade cultivation method. The Cold Light Ice Soul Sword was a low-grade spiritual artifact. 2. With the sword defense lightning technique, not only would Yizan's cultivation speed increase, but it would also allow his own power to be attached to the power of thunder. On the Tianyuan continent, the power of thunder was an extremely tyrannical power. If a cultivator's power was attached to the power of thunder, it would greatly increase their destructive power. The Cold Light Ice Soul Sword could increase both Yizan's combat power and also give him the additional power of ice. If ordinary people who had not stepped into the ranks of cultivation came into contact with it, they would instantly become an ice sculpture. Moreover, if a cultivator's power was strong enough, one sword could freeze even an entire river. With the support of these two powerful tools, Yizan was not even slightly afraid of meeting more advanced cultivators later on. Of course, if he wanted to fight against a cultivator at the Golden Core state, he could only use the power of a 7th grade Nirvana pill. After all, some talented cultivators could easily cross states to challenge others. This was especially in low states, such as the refinement states and the chi transformation state, which those who had just entered cultivation were in. With the support of all kinds of rare equipment, many talented geniuses could cross even 3 or 4 stages. Of course, as one's state increased, the difficulty of crossing stages also increased. Perhaps in the chi transformation state, some talented geniuses could cross 3 or 4 levels to fight, but if their cultivation reached the true essence state, they could at most cross only 1 or 2 stages. When one's cultivation reached the purple spirit state, if they could cross even 2 stages to fight, they would be 1 in 10,000 and a complete genius. Once one's cultivation base reached the core formation state, the power in the cultivator's core would be extremely boundless. It would be extremely difficult to cross stages to challenge. To be able to remain undefeated in such a state, one could be called a rare genius. If one was able to cross a minor stage to challenge someone, then one would be a monster among 10,000. If one was truly able to cross a minor stage, he was an absolute monster. In this 1 month, if you want to make another breakthrough, you have to find some special items to give to you, or you'll have to take in more disciples. Yizan stroked his chin and thought for a moment, then said slowly. Although it seemed like he could no longer get any use out of Yu's body, there were actually quite a lot of things that he could farm from her. 1. For example, a cultivator's comprehension value and innate bone value. If he could help you increase her comprehension value and innate bone value, he could also receive feedback points from the system. However, to increase a cultivator's comprehension value and innate bone value, he would have to find some extremely rare heavenly and earthly treasures. Of course, Yizan could also farm some experience related to refiners or alchemists through you. The current Yizan was just an ordinary cultivator. He did not have the talent of an alchemist or an armament master at all. If he wanted to dabble in these 2 fields, he could obtain some knowledge from his disciples. As long as his disciple had successfully become an armament master or an alchemist, he would be able to obtain corresponding feedback points. Then, he would gain the corresponding talent. The most important thing was that his level would always surpass his disciples. Let's not think about this for now. For now, I should first break through and bring you to get her revenge. Yizan waved his sleeve and set up a simple array in the hall. Then, he went into seclusion. After pouring his spiritual energy into you, he was only half a step away from the middle stage. As long as he gathered the power of the 7th grade Nirvana pill, he would be able to break through easily. Moreover, he still had 3 days left, which would be more than enough. The array in the hall would completely shield Yizan's aura, so as to avoid alerting the sect master and the others as to what was happening. Time passed quickly. Soon, 3 days passed. During this period, his movements in the hall did not disturb anyone. When Yizan left the hall, his strength had already broken through to the middle stage of the real core state. Other than that, the cultivation method in his body had also undergone a transformation. He had already successfully mastered to the sword defense lightning technique. In the entire Qingyan sect, the only one who had broken through to the middle stage of the true core state like him was the sect leader, Wan Shanhai. Even the deputy sect leader was only at the early stage of the true core state. After sensing the surging aura bursting out of his core, Yizan could not help but smile. After reaching the true core state, every stage crossed was like a difference in strength between heaven and earth. Now, he could easily defeat his previous self. True core state cultivators were already very powerful. Every stage brought one's power up more than 2-fold. It was not just a little more than 2-fold, either. When a cultivator in the early stages of the true core state met someone in the middle stages, they would be crushed. After all, this was no small increase. It was very likely that the power increase was between 10,000 and 20,000-fold. 4. It was also because of this that the higher the state, the more difficult it was for a cultivator to challenge a cultivator at a higher state than them. When Yizan walked out of the hall, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared in his field of vision. 1. It turned out that Yu had been waiting outside the hall for a long time. Greetings, Master. Seeing Yizan come out, Yu quickly bowed, her eyes respectful. Yu, today I'll give you a special gift. Yizan said with a smile. Yu was puzzled. Suddenly, a symbol that looked like a small bird lit up between Yizan's eyebrows. As the symbol emitted rays of light, it left Yizan's eyebrows and slowly grew bigger. Then, it turned into a huge flying bird. Its feathers were a fiery red color, and it increased the temperature of their surroundings. Master, this flying bird, seeing this, Yu could not help but open her cherry-like mouth slightly. She looked at the flying bird in front of her with surprise. Don't be surprised. He is my mount, a level 4 firebird. Now, he's yours, Yizan said with a smile. 1. Then, without waiting for Yu to react, Yizan reached out and grabbed the mount. A drop of blood essence suddenly appeared in the body of the firebird before slowly falling onto Yu's glabella. The next second, Yu's entire body shook, and the symbol of the firebird suddenly appeared between her eyebrows. Yu suddenly felt an inexplicable connection to the firebird in front of her. When she looked at it, she felt warm inside. This was a powerful tier 4 demon beast, which was equivalent to a cultivator being in the purple spirit state. Was her master so easily giving it to her as a mount? The tiers of demon beasts were very straightforward. There were a total of 10 tiers. The lowest tier was equivalent to a cultivator's refinement state, while the second tier corresponded to the chi transformation state, and so on. In other words, the firebird that you had just been given was equivalent to the purple spirit state of human cultivators. In the Great Qian dynasty, it was considered an extremely rare treasure. Ding. As the host has gifted his disciple a firebird tier 4 mount, the host has received a 50-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations on obtaining the Blazing Plume tier 5 mount. Chapter 12. Competition, Special Reward. As soon as the system finished speaking, a bird filled with fiery red power appeared in Yizan's system storage space. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. This was the Blazing Plume gifted by the system. It was a powerful tier 5 mount. The Blazing Plume was similar to the firebird from before in terms of appearance, but the fiery red color of its feathers was more powerful and saturated. The strength of a tier 5 demon beast was equivalent to that of a human cultivator at the empty core stage. Not bad. Seeing this, Yizan could not help but smile. Let's go. You can familiarize yourself with the mount on the way. After Yizan withdrew his spiritual sense, he said to Yu. Okay. Yu nodded obediently, then slowly controlled the firebird to fly. Screech. The firebird faced the sky and let out a long cry. Its huge wings suddenly shook, and it slowly squatted down in front of Yizan and Yu. When the two came behind it, it flapped its wings and flew up high. However, just as the firebird was about to leave the Qingyan clan, a stream of light suddenly appeared. A figure then stood in front of Yizan and Yu. Elder Yi, are you leaving the Qingyan clan? The stream of light slowly dissipated, revealing a woman with a curvy figure. This woman was Elder Lin Qing from before. I want to bring you outside the clan to train. Yizan said. I see, no wonder, what? Seeing this, Lin Qing could not help but look curious. Just as she was about to say something, her expression suddenly changed, and he stared at Yu. 9th stage Qi transformation state. When the difference in strength between cultivators was too wide, cultivators with high cultivation level could spot weak cultivation states at a glance. Of course, if these weak cultivators had special methods to cover their states, they could indeed prevent others from seeing through their own cultivation realms. However, Yu obviously did not have this. In addition, Lin Qing's cultivation had reached the middle stage of the empty state, so she could naturally see Yu's state at a glance. How did you do this? Lin Qing looked at Yu with a face full of shock. If she remembered correctly, 3 days ago, this little girl had still been at a weak 4th stage refinement state. How could she have crossed such a large state in an instant? 2. Most importantly, this girl's aura was extremely stable. She did not look weak at all. Elder Yi, what on earth is? Lin Qing turned her head to look at Yizan. What else could be the reason behind a weak cultivator being able to cross such a large state in just 3 days? There could only be 2 scenarios. Firstly, a cultivator could have taught her everything very quickly, or perhaps the girl had awakened a rare physique in her cultivation. However, even if it was a rare physique, it would be impossible to jump states so quickly. At least, to Lin Qing's knowledge, there was no such physique capable of doing that. Most importantly, even if this girl's physique was really unique, it was impossible for her to not see any clues of it, right? In that case, there was only one other possibility. Elder Lin, what's the matter? Yizan did not seem to see Lin Qing's questioning expression. He spoke to her indifferently. Seeing this, Lin Qing could not help but look at Yizan with a complicated expression. It was obvious that Yizan did not want to reveal the matter of the spiritual power infusion, so he pretended not to understand her meaningful gaze. Forget it. Since this guy does not want to say anything, why should I ask? However, even so, Lin Qing was still extremely shocked in her heart. It's like this. My 2 disciples have left the clan to train for 2 months. Their names are Huang Ling and Shui Min. I don't know where they are right now. If Elder Yi happens to meet them outside, please bring them back to the clan for me. Soon, our Qingyan clan will hold a competition. After the competition, there will be another competition between the 3 great clans. The clan leader said that the competition rewards are very special, so I want to ask my 2 disciples to come back and participate. Lin Qing explained. Special rewards. Hearing this, Yizan could not help but perk up. That's right. Lin Qing nodded and said again. Whether it's the grand competition of the Qingyan clan or the grand competition between the 3 major clans, the rewards will all be very special. It seems like they'll be able to increase a cultivator's comprehension value. What? Hearing this, Yizan's eyes immediately lit up before his gaze fell on Yu. In that case, you go and register too. Yes, master. Now that Yu had absolute trust in Yizan, she naturally would not question any of Yizan's decisions. If her master asked her to participate, she would have to put in 120% of her effort to win and obtain victory. Hearing this, Lin Qing could not help but look at Yu. She did not say anything. Although it was indeed a very rare thing for Yu to have broken through to the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state at her current age, there was still a huge gap between her and the more talented disciples of the Qingyan clan. Especially the personal disciples that the clan master and elders had taken in. All of them had already reached the true essence state. Perhaps when it came to interior disciples, Yu's current strength was indeed outstanding, but if she wanted to compete with personal disciples, she would not currently have any chance of winning. I won't be out for too long this time. If I meet Huang Ling and Shui Min, I'll definitely bring them back. Yizan said. If he ran into them by chance, he could of course bring them back. Otherwise, he could not be less bothered about them. Thank you, Elder Yi. Lin Qing said with a smile. Well, in that case, we'll be leaving first. Yizan nodded slightly, then the firebird flapped its wings and flew away. Lin Qing's gaze fell on the firebird in the air. She could not help but reveal a hint of confusion on her face. Spiritual energy infusion. How could this guy waste so much energy on a girl with such mediocre talent? Didn't he hate taking in disciples more than anyone before? 1. For a moment, all kinds of questions popped into Lin Qing's mind. Chapter 13. Hiding auras. Yu sat on the back of the firebird thousands of feet high in the sky. She looked down at the ground below and could not help but feel curious. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. It was her first time flying in the sky. Yu, on the Tianyuan continent, the weak are prey to the strong. The strong are respected. This world is extremely cruel. You must remember not to expose your strengths in front of others. 4. Today, I will teach you a method to hide your aura. Yizan stood on the back of the firebird with an indifferent expression. The spiritual power in his body turned into a transparent shield to resist the strong wind in the sky. He suddenly remembered something from his run-in with Elder Lin Qing. He had been so focused on helping Yu break through with her cultivation that he had forgotten to teach her how to hide her strength. Hearing this, Yu, who was sitting cross-legged on the back of the firebird, could not help but look at Yizan with bright eyes. Yizan reached out and gently tapped on Yu's forehead. Qi storage technique. At the same time, a secret technique suddenly appeared in Yu's mind. By practicing Qi storage technique, one could easily hide one's own strength. Unless the difference in strength between 2 parties was too great, the other party would not be able to see through one's cultivation. Yu's current cultivation was at the 9th stage of the Qi transformation state. After practicing the Qi storage technique, she could at most block the spiritual sensing of an empty core state cultivator. If she encountered a true core stage cultivator, or an even stronger existence, this secret technique would have no effect at all. Of course, with Yu's breakthroughs in strength would also come the improvement of her Qi storage technique. Ding. Due to the host imparting the Qi storage technique to his disciple, a random 21-fold feedback critical hit has been obtained. Congratulations on obtaining the breath-concealing technique. The system's voice sounded in Yizan's mind. Immediately, he hurriedly opened the introduction of the breath-concealing technique. The breath-concealing technique was the same as the previous Qi storage technique. It could also conceal the cultivator's specific realm, but it could completely conceal the cultivator's aura, making the other party seem dead to the world when it came to spirituality. In other words, the chi concealing technique could only hide the cultivator's cultivation state, but the breath concealing technique could hide all the cultivator's information. Whether it was the cultivator's cultivation state, breathing, heartbeat, or anything else, it could all be completely concealed. After using the breath concealing technique, one's entire person would be like a grain of sand, completely unremarkable to the eye. Moreover, if one could cultivate to a state of mastery, there was a very high possibility of concealing the detection of a high-level cultivator. This could be said to be a killer's ultimate move. Seeing this, Yi Zan chose to cultivate without hesitation. Yu, who was carefully comprehending the chi field, could not help but raise her eyebrows. She realized that with her spiritual sense, it seemed that she could not detect the existence of her master at all. However, when she opened her eyes, her master was beside her with a calm expression. However, when she used her spiritual sense to detect again, she once again lost all her perception of her master. It was as if her master had become one with the void. The firebird was extremely fast. In a moment, it had covered thousands of miles and was flying toward Yu's home. When Yi Zan left the Qingyan sect, he had asked for Yu's specific address. Yu's home was in Fengshan County, Linxi Village, west of Yunhai City. Fengshan County was located in Yunnan Province, which was in the east of the Great Qian dynasty. Back then, Yu had also experienced a narrow escape. It had taken her several months to reach the Qingyan sect. Now, with the rapid flying speed of the firebird, they had only taken 4 days to get close to Yunhai City. Time passed slowly. Soon, a huge mountain range appeared in their field of vision. Even though they were thousands of feet up from the ground, they could not see the end of the mountain range. Not far away is the mountain range of the rural area. After passing this mountain range, we can reach Yunhai City. Yi Zan stood on the back of the firebird, looked at the mountain range not far away, and spoke slowly. Hearing this, Yu hurriedly stood up. Looking at the mountain range in front of her, she could not help but feel absent-minded. When she first came to the Qingyan sect, she had experienced a narrow escape, barely passing through this mountain range. After leaving the dangerous center of the mountain range, she had met a pair of kind-hearted merchants. It was also with the help of that pair of merchants that she was able to arrive at the Qingyan sect by horse carriage. The Death Zone mountain range was extremely dangerous. It was known as one of the forbidden areas of the Great Qian dynasty. Cultivators who had not broken through to the core formation state would never to show off like Yi Zan. After all, there were many powerful demon beasts in the mountain range. If one was not strong enough, it was very likely that one would fall prey at the hands of those demon beasts. Of course, the mountain range of the Death Zone had many opportunities as well as much danger. It was also because of this that countless adventurers were active around the mountain range. At least on the way over the mountain range, Yi Zan had already seen more than a dozen groups of adventurers. When the adventurers saw the firebird flying over the void, they could not help but shrink their necks back. Just the aura of the firebird alone was already so terrifying. How terrifying could the strength of the master behind him be? Of course, Yi Zan did not know what the adventurers were thinking, and he was not interested. He planned to cross the mountain range of the Death Zone as soon as possible and then take a rest in Yunhai City. However, at this moment, a few figures suddenly appeared in his field of vision. Are they so fated? Seeing this, Yi Zan could not help but reveal a helpless expression. Not far ahead of them, there were 3 groups of cultivators confronting each other. One of the groups consisted of 2 curvaceous girls. Their beautiful eyes were filled with solemnity, and the long swords in their hands shone with a sharp light. On the other side were 7 cultivators in different clothes, with various weapons in their hands. Their gazes were fixed on the crystal in the hands of a young girl, their eyes filled with greed. On the other side, there were 3 young men dressed in cyan and black robes. These 3 men had calm expressions, and their faces had focused and strategizing expressions. The man at the front stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze fell on the 2 young girls in front of him, and his eyes were filled with ridicule. I wonder what the 2 of you think. As long as you agree to use the dark glacial frost as a reward, we will help you deal with these people. The young man dressed in green robes looked at the 2 young ladies indifferently, his eyes filled with ridicule as he spoke. Brat who doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and the earth, do you know what you're talking about? Before the 2 young ladies could reply, one of the group of 7, a fierce-looking man with a scar on his face, spoke up with a vicious look in his eyes. This guy really did not know what was good for him. Did he really think the three of them would be able to defeat them? He has not even tried to find out how powerful our ferocious adventurer team is. Hee. The young man did not bother with the scary guy. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the two girls. Chapter 14. Can the two of you escape? What else do the two of you have to think about? You're not a match for them at all, and you can't beat us. Do you really think that the two of you can escape? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. The young man lightly turned the storage ring on his finger and spoke with a playful look in his eyes. Amongst everyone in the crowd, his cultivation was at the highest level, and he was also the strongest. Although the two junior brothers next to him were slightly weaker, they were still able to deal with these people. In other words, even if both sides chose to join forces, they would not be afraid. Senior sister, what should we do? When Shui Min saw this, her expression could not help but change as she anxiously asked Huang Ling what to do. We must escape this place, no matter what it takes. Knowing this, Huang Ling could not help but grit her teeth. Then, she used her spiritual senses to send a message to Shui Min. When Shui Min heard this, she could not help but frown. The difference in strength between the two sides was not small. Could they really escape? If they were facing only the ferocious adventurer team, with their current strength, they might still be able to escape under the promise that they would ensure the safety of the dark glacial frost. Not only that, but if they used the trump card left by their master, they might be able to destroy the adventurer team. However, besides the adventurer team, there were three other powerful existences. The cultivation practitioners of these adventurer teams did not know the identities of these three people, but Shui Min and Huang Ling knew them very well. These people were all from the Xuanian sect. The young man standing at the front, dressed in a green-black robe, was the disciple of the ninth elder of the Xuanian sect, and he was a powerful personal disciple. His name was Duan Wuji. Judging from the energy waves emitted by his hand earlier, it seemed like he was a cultivation practitioner who had reached the fifth stage of the true essence state, but Shui Ming and Huang Ling knew very well that this guy's strength had already broken through to the seventh stage of the true essence state. The reason was very simple. Duan Wuji was very familiar with the qi storage technique and had concealed part of his energy waves. Therefore, not for the cultivation practitioners who were extremely powerful, they would not have been able to see his actual cultivation state. It was also because of this that the cultivation practitioners of the adventure team thought that Duan Wuji was just an existence in the fifth stage of the true essence state, so they were not too worried about him. Most importantly, the Xuanian sect was ranked second in the Great Qian dynasty. As the personal disciple of an elder, how could the other party not have a trump card? What? Haven't you made a decision yet? At this moment, Duan Wuji's gaze fell on Huang Ling. The expression in his eyes gradually grew colder. However, when his gaze fell on the crystal in Huang Ling's hand, he could not help but reveal a hint of greed. The dark glacial frost was an extremely rare treasure that could increase a cultivator's innate ability quite a bit. When Shui Ming and Huang Ling saw this, they could not help but narrow their eyes. Their grips on the longsword in their hands tightened. It seemed like the other party was already impatient. It was very likely that he would make a move against them. Quickly leave. Right at this moment, Huang Ling roared in anger, then her feet abruptly stomped the ground. The powerful spiritual power undulations left a deep pit in the ground. The waves ended explosively not far away, shooting some earth up with it. At the same time, Shui Ming performed some mysterious footwork and followed closely behind Huang Ling. Do you think you can escape? Seeing this, the leader of the adventurer team immediately revealed a savage smile. The sword in his hand emitted a sharp light before his whole body shot forward like a cannonball. At the same time, the other cultivators of the adventurer team also followed with the treasures in their hands. Why are you struggling so hard? Seeing this, Duan Wuji could not help but let out a cold smile. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared. His two junior brothers followed closely behind. Bang, clash, bang, clash. Soon, the sound of intense fighting could be heard from the forest that was covered with rocks. The leader of the adventurer team had a sharp and long sword in his hand. The sword was suffused with powerful sword energy, and he had used it to cut trees down along the way here. However, an even more powerful force emerged, slamming into the long blade of the scarred man. The powerful force sent the scarred man flying over 30 feet back. As he flew back, he knocked several trees down. Just after the scarred man slammed into the ground, a huge fist imprint appeared on his chest, making his entire ribcage sink in. Why your strength? The man looked not far away, his eyes filled with despair and fear. Just a few seconds ago, Duan Wuji's extremely fast speed had surpassed him, and that casual punch had almost killed him. It was that punch that made the scar-faced man truly understand his opponent's strength. This guy had actually reached the peak of the 7th stage true essence state, and was only half a step away from the 8th stage. How could a mere 5th stage true essence state cultivator like him be his opponent? PFF'd. Immediately, an extremely violent power rampaged through the scar-faced man's meridians. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of black blood before his entire body collapsed next to a broken tree. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Leader. The leader is already dead. Let's run. The other cultivators of the adventurer team saw this scene and could not help but have a drastic change in expression. However, their first thought was not to save the scar-faced man, but to check if he was still alive. Then, they frantically fled in all directions. Besides the scar-faced man, the strongest among them was only at the 4th stage of the true essence state. Even their leader, who had reached the 5th stage, had been no match for Duan Wuji. How could they dare to stay? Kill them all. I don't want anyone to escape. Duan Wuji indifferently gave his 2 junior brothers some orders before he disappeared again. Hearing that, a murderous glint sparkled in the 2 cultivation practitioners' eyes. Then, a ferocious smile appeared on their lips as they charged toward the fleeing adventurers. Ah, I beg you, let me go. Mercy. Not long after, screams of pain rang out in the forest covered in rocks. Although the 2 disciples of the Xuanian sect had only reached the 5th stage of the true essence state, as talented cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect, they were not existences that these ordinary adventurers could compare to. In just a moment, all the cultivation practitioners of the fierce adventuring team were killed. At the same time, Duan Wuji caught up with Shui Ming and Huang Ling, who were running away. Looking at Duan Wuji, who was walking toward them leisurely, their faces twisted up. Chapter 15. You are quite arrogant. Duan Wuji was too powerful. He had caught up with them so quickly. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. He was a genius cultivation practitioner in the 7th stage of the true essence state. Even if they chose to use their master's trump card, it would be difficult for them to escape. After all, how could the genius cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect not have their own trump cards? Most importantly, Huang Ling was only at the 5th stage of the true essence state, and Shui Ming was only at the 4th stage, so how could they possibly stop this other party? It seemed like this was a dead end, no matter how one looked at it. Don't you guys like to run? Go on, then, run. Duan Wuji moved his body and suddenly appeared on top of a big tree, looking at the 2 people below with a mocking gaze. It was at this moment that the 2 other cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect came over after finishing off the adventure team. Then, the 3 of them formed a pincer attack and surrounded Huang Ling and Shui Min. Duan Wuji, you're a 7th stage true essence state practitioner bullying a 5th stager and 4th stager. What kind of man are you? Huang Ling looked at Duan Wuji coldly. She and Shui Min had obtained this dark glacial frost by chance. Duan Wuji and the fierce adventurer team had discovered that they were in possession of it. What made them feel helpless was that both sides had discovered the existence of the dark glacial frost. It was a rare treasure that could increase a cultivator's innate bone value. How could they miss out on such a thing? After all, this was a treasure that even cultivation practitioners in the core formation state coveted. It was precisely because of this that the previous scene had taken place. Whether it was the cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect led by Duan Wuji or the ferocious adventurer team, they all coveted the dark glacial frost in their hands. Of course, with Duan Wuji's strength, there was no need for him to negotiate with Huang Ling and Shui Min. He had only proposed such a condition to show off in front of them. However, Shui Min and Shui Min had repeatedly rejected Duan Wuji's condition, so he of course would not be kind to them. Treasures belong to the capable. Do you think your strength is worthy of owning this dark glacial frost? Duan Wuji could not help but sneer when he saw this. 1. As long as you hand over the dark glacial frost, I can spare your lives on account of the fact that we're both part of top-tier sects of the Great Qian dynasty. After all, I don't really like fighting, don't force my hand. As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Wuji's eyes landed on Huang Ling and Shui Min wantonly. A lewd look flashed across his eyes. Duan Wuji, if you choose to attack us, you'll be making an enemy of our Qingyan sect. Do you think you can bear such consequences? Huang Ling could not help but ask the question with a cold expression in her eyes. At the same time, her heart was filled with despair. If the other party attacked, she and her junior sister would die today. Making an enemy. Our Xuanian sect is ranked second among the top sects. Your Qingyan sect is only ranked 10th. What can you do if you offend us? Besides, as long as I kill all the people who were here today, who will know that you died by my hand? Even if the Qingyan sect really hears about this, do you think they'd dare to become enemies with the Xuanian sect? Duan Wuji could not help but put on a mocking expression when he heard this. With the strength of the Xuanian sect, he was indeed justified in being cocky. Forget a mere personal disciple of the Qingyan sect. Even if your elders came here, they wouldn't dare to make an enemy of my sect. 1. Duan Wuji spoke arrogantly, his eyes full of disdain. Oh, it seems like you're quite confident about that. It was at this moment that a faint voice suddenly rang out. Who is that? Hearing this, Duan Wuji's pupils constricted abruptly, and the spiritual awareness in his body swept out of him, searching for the source of the voice everywhere. At the same time, the expressions of the two cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect, as well as Huang Ling and Shui Min's expressions, also changed. They knew very well that a truly powerful cultivation practitioner had appeared. Though the voice was faint, it seemed to ring out in all directions at the same time, filling the entire area. Duan Wuji carefully searched the surrounding space but could not find any traces of a cultivator. At this moment, Duan Wuji seemed to recall something as his gaze suddenly landed on one point within the empty space. A fiery red figure suddenly appeared. It was a firebird. Accompanied by the crack of the sound barrier breaking, the firebird showed up in an instant. At the same time, Duan Wuji noticed the two figures behind the firebird. They were a young man with a peerless face and temperament, and a young woman with a delicate and graceful figure. Although he did not know that woman, they were extremely familiar with the man. This guy was the fifth elder of Qingyan sect, Yi Zan. Although the Qingyan sect was only ranked 10th in the Great Qian dynasty, Yi Zan's reputation was nothing to be scoffed at. As the youngest elder of the Qingyan sect, he was also known as the greatest genius of the Qingyan sect in the past 500 years. He had broken through to the middle stage of the empty core stage at the age of 20. Even within the Xuanian sect, there were many elders who thought highly of Yi Zan. They thought that it was very likely that he would break through to the true core stage before the age of 26, and even reach the golden core stage before the age of 46. It should be known that in the Great Qian dynasty, cultivators in the golden core state represented absolute power. Even Duan Wuji, who thought that his talent was not bad, had only broken through to the 7th stage of the true essence state at the age of 18. Although he was confident that he could reach the purple spirit state before the age of 20, he could not guarantee that he could reach the core formation state before 30. This was a huge barrier for cultivators. The higher one's state, the more difficult it would be to break through. Many cultivators had already broken through to the 10th stage of the purple spirit state by the age of 30, but most cultivators had to spend decades before they could then enter the core formation state. There were many cultivators who tried their entire lives, unable to break through the purple spirit stage. This proved Yi Zan's talent. How could Duan Wuji not have heard of him? He was now looking at this legend. After seeing Yi Zan appear, Duan Wuji's expression grew extremely unsightly, and his body could not help but tremble. He could not help but feel a sense of fear in his heart. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to quickly run away. That dark glacial frost was nothing. Right now, saving his life was the most important thing he could do. Chapter 16. Extermination. However, in the next second, Duan Wuji discovered to his horror that he could not move anymore. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So An invisible force had restrained his body. It was a terrifying force from the core formation state. At the same time, the two other cultivation practitioners from the Xuanian sect not far away were also restrained by this invisible force, unable to move. However, Huang Ling and Shui Min were not affected in the slightest. Screech. Right at this moment, a loud and clear cry rang out in the void. The wings of the firebird vibrated with the terrifying power of flames, slowly hovering above a big tree. The terrifying pressure of the air even pushed the surrounding big trees to the ground. Elder Yi. When Huang Ling and Shui Min's gazes fell on the figure on the back of the firebird, they could not help but reveal the wild joy in their eyes. There was hope. Yi Zan, the idol they worshipped in Qingyan sect, was here. His cultivation was a terrifying existence on the same level as their master. A true expert at the middle stage of the empty core state. Even if Duan Wuji was a monster, it would be impossible for him to snatch the dark glacial frost away from them in front of a core formation cultivator. Duan Wuji greets Elder Yi. Under Yi Zan's terrifying pressure, Duan Wuji could not move at all. However, he still forced a smile. He could not help but curse in his heart. Damn it, why would an elder of the Qingyan sect appear in such a goddamn place? This is going to be so troublesome. When he thought about how he had been acting so pretentious 1 second ago and had gotten slapped in the face the next, he immediately felt extremely aggrieved. You're quite arrogant. How dare a mere personal disciple look down on the elders of my Qingyan sect? Seeing him, Yi Zan could not help but put on a sneer. Although the Qingyan sect's strength could not compare to the Xuanian sect, it was still a powerful sect that had been around for thousands of years. It was not weak enough to kowtow to the Xuanian sect. Most importantly, the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect were not on good terms, anyway. A few days ago, the elders of the Xuanian sect had besieged Yi Zan, so the two sides were enemies. However, since Duan Wuji left the sect 30 days ago to train, he did not know about this matter. It was all my fault. Please forgive me, Elder Yi, for my unintentional mistake. Seeing this, Duan Wuji quickly forced another smile. Hee, do you think this is fun? Yi Zan looked at Duan Wuji indifferently before the chi transformation power in his core suddenly exploded. Seeing this, Duan Wuji could not help but change his expression. The bones in his body made no sound, but it was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on him. He could not help but kneel down. Huang Ling and Shui Min watched this scene from not far away. They were overjoyed. Duan Wuji had been extremely arrogant before, and his face had been full of pride, but now he was smiling like a dog in front of Elder Yi Zan. This was the absolute power that only those with great strength could possess. By simply relying on pressure, he was able to immobilize another 7th stage true essence state genius cultivator and make him nearly kneel down and beg for mercy. Elder Yi, my master is Gongsun Wuji. Please show mercy on account of my master. Duan Wuji did not want to kneel down. A powerful energy burst out of his body and resisted Yi Zan's pressure with great difficulty. For a moment, Duan Wuji's face was extremely red, and his blue veins almost burst out of his skin. Gongsun Wuji. Hearing this, Yi Zan's eyes immediately turned cold. Gongsun Wuji was the 9th elder of the Xuanian sect and was one of the people who had besieged him. Boom. Immediately, Yi Zan unleashed all the terrifying power of the true core state. In an instant, Duan Wuji and the other 2 cultivators of the Xuanian sect were pressed down to the ground. PFF'd. The 3 of them simultaneously spat out blood. They were severely injured. This pressure. Witnessing this, Duan Wuji's pupils constricted abruptly, and his expression changed drastically. He had never felt such a terrifying pressure before, not even from his master. This is the pressure of the true core state. How is it possible? How could he have broken through to the true core state? For a moment, Duan Wuji's eyes were filled with disbelief. Yi Zan should have been in the middle stage of the empty core state. Why did he have the terrifying pressure of a true core realm cultivator? He had broken through to the true core state after just 20 years of cultivation. Even the founder of the Xuanian sect could not have done so when he was younger. Elder Yi. Duan Wuji immediately shouted with a face full of fear. He could already sense the killing intent in Yi Zan's pupils. This guy was probably going to kill him. Previously, he had been at most scared and worried that Yi Zan would punish him, so he did not want to reveal such a fearful expression. However, he could now sense Yi Zan's killing intent. He might die. He would not dare, right? For a moment, Duan Wuji's eyes were filled with disbelief. If he really died at Yi Zan's hands, the Xuanian sect might declare war on the Qingyan sect. How could the Qingyan sect survive that? Elder Yi Zan, please. However, before Duan Wuji could beg for mercy, Yi Zan slowly raised his hand, expressionless. When Duan Wuji saw this, he was instantly scared out of his wits. Elder Yi, don't be rash. If you make a move against me, the Xuanian sect will definitely not give up. Duan Wuji shouted with a face full of fear. 1. Don't worry. After you leave, I will send Gongsun Wuji to find you very soon. As for the Xuanian sect, they will also be buried with you. Yi Zan said indifferently. 3. Then, in response to Duan Wuji's desperate expression, Yi Zan waved his hand lightly. A terrifying force that could collapse mountains and crack rocks suddenly erupted. Rumble. In an instant, the 3 cultivators of the Xuanian sect turned into nothingness and disappeared from the world. Huang Ling and Shui Min, who were not far away, witnessed this entire scene and could not help but stare blankly, almost rooted to the spot. Had Elder Yi really killed Duan Wuji? Was he not worried that the Xuanian sect would take revenge on the Qingyan sect? The two of them thought that Yi Zan would at most punish Duan Wuji by breaking his limbs or something like that. There was nothing they could do. The Xuanian sect was very powerful. They were the second most powerful sect in the Great Qian dynasty. The Qingyan sect usually did not dare to offend the Xuanian sect. They never expected Elder Yi to be so decisive in killing him. Although they felt slightly relieved at Duan Wuji's death, they were more afraid now. If the Xuanian sect took revenge on the Qingyan sect, how would they deal with it? Since Yi Zan's pressure had only swept over Duan Wuji and the others, Huang Ling and Huang Ling did not know that Yi Zan's cultivation had already broken through to the true core state. What are you waiting for? Hurry up, and come over. Yi Zan's voice slowly drifted over to their ears. Ah, okay. Hearing this, the two came back to their senses. They jumped onto the back of the Firebird. The next second, the Firebird faced the sky and let out a long howl before it flapped its wings and flew off into the distance. Chapter 17. Someone Else's Master. Thank you for your help, Elder Yi. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Huang Ling and Shui Min came to the back of the Firebird and bowed respectfully to Yi Zan. They had never been so close to Yi Zan before. Looking at the idol that they had admired for so long, their cheeks could not help but burn. Their hearts could not help thumping hard. Not only was Yi Zan extremely talented, but he was also very handsome. His temperament was also unparalleled. The most important thing was that he was only 20 years old this year. He could be said to be the ideal type in the hearts of the countless female cultivators in the Qingyan sect. Seeing them, Yi Zan waved his hand indifferently. Putting aside the fact that these two were Lin Qing's disciples, even if they were ordinary disciples of the Qingyan sect, if they encountered such a thing, he would not have hesitated to do the same. Not only Yi Zan would have done so, too. The other elders would do the same. 1. After all, in the Great Qian dynasty, the Qingyan sect was famous for protecting their own. Although there were some internal conflicts within the sect, they always united when it came to facing common enemies. When I left the sect, I was instructed by your teacher to bring you back to Qingyan sect if I met you two along the way. The competition between the three great sects is about to begin, so it's time for you two to go back and participate. I thought I wouldn't see you two, but you guys were the first people we ran into on our first day out. Yi Zan said with a smile. Junior sister and I have been training outside for 2 months. We wanted to come back soon, but we didn't expect to find dark glacial ice in the mountain range of the death zone. We wanted to bring it back to the sect immediately, but we didn't expect to get blocked by Duan Wuji and an adventuring team. Thinking of this, Huang Ling could not help but shudder once again in fear. If Yi Zan had not appeared in time, she and Shui Min might have really died here. The cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect were extremely vicious. In order to avoid information about dark glacial frost having been found being spread around, Duan Wuji and the others might have chosen to silence them. In the entire Great Qian dynasty, many cultivation practitioners were well aware of the Xuanian sect's style of doing things. The cultivation practitioners of the Xuanian sect were extremely arrogant, and they had countless grudges with the outside world. It was common for the cultivation practitioners of the sect to snatch treasures out of the hands of other cultivation practitioners. The most infuriating thing was that they often used the strength of the Xuanian sect to distort the truth. Some of the cultivation practitioners who were not familiar with the style of the Xuanian sect might believe their slander, but they would be extremely disdainful once they truly understood it. The reason was simple. The Xuanian sect did not differentiate right from wrong. It was also because of this that Huang Ling and Shui Min knew very well that if they had agreed to Duan Wuji's condition earlier, they would still not have let them off after annihilating the team of adventurers. Most importantly, knowing the Xuanian sect, they would definitely humiliate the cultivation practitioners before they slaughtered them. Even if the Qingyan sect wanted to hold them accountable, they couldn't do anything without a witness. What? You have dark glacial frost? Seeing this, Yi Zan's eyes lit up, and then his gaze fell upon the crystal in Huang Ling's hand. The crystal was crystal clear, and it was suffused with a faint icy power. If Elder Yi hadn't appeared in time, the both of us would have died here. This dark glacial frost can be considered a thank you gift to Elder Yi. Huang Ling and Shui Min looked at each other and nodded in unison. If not for Yi Zan's appearance, they would have perished at the hands of Duan Wuji, and might even have been humiliated before death. Compared to their own lives, what was mere frost? Anyway, this treasure was going to be given to their idol. What was there to hesitate about? The frost in your hand is not small. It is more than enough to increase the innate bone values of 3 cultivators. Yizan waved his hand slightly, and the ice in Huang Ling's hand appeared in his palm. In the next second, the ice in his palm suddenly split into 3 equal portions. 2 portions fell into Huang Ling's hand after that. I only need 1 portion. The rest is up to you to use. Okay, but I won't take the ice for free. Yizan thought for a moment before he took out 2 pills from his storage ring. One was a body refining pill, and the other was a poison pill. These 2 pills were the pills that Yizan had gotten from you. His cultivation had already reached the true core state, so these 2 pills were not of much use to him. However, they would be of great help to Huang Ling and Shui Min, 2 true essence state cultivators. Yizan flicked his finger lightly, and the 2 pills suddenly fell into their hands. Huang Ling and Shui Min looked at each other, selected the pill they wanted, then bowed respectfully to Yizan. Their eyes shone. Thank you for the pills, Elder Yi. The 2 of them had always admired Yizan, but this had put him on an entirely different pedestal. The 2 of them chatted for a while. Huang Ling and Shui Min also learned that the girl next to Yizan was called Yu. She was Yizan's new disciple he had just taken in. For a moment, the 2 of them were filled with envy. They sighed in their hearts. Why weren't they Elder Yizan's disciples? One had to know that in the Qingyan sect, countless cultivators yearned to become Yizan's disciple. However, he used to have no intention of taking in a disciple at all. No one expected him to suddenly take one in now. Yu was really enviable. However, what happened next made Huang Ling and Shui Min even more envious of Yu. Because Yizan did not hesitate to give Yu his portion of dark glacial frost. Dark glacial frost was an extremely rare treasure that could increase a cultivator's innate bone value. Although the increase was limited, it was still enough to greatly help someone even at the core formation state out. However, Yizan did not hesitate to give it to Yu. Even Master Lin Qing, who loved them very much, had never given them such a great gift. Ding. As the host has given his disciple Dark Glacial Frost, you have received a random 8-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations, the host has obtained Mountain Chalcedony. 1. A system notification sounded in Yizan's mind. A clear and pure white liquid suddenly appeared in his storage space. This was also a rare treasure that could increase a cultivator's innate bone value, and its effect was even more pronounced than Dark Glacial Frosts. This feedback is pretty good. Seeing this, Yizan could not help but smile. Whether it was the Dark Glacial Frost that Shui Min and Yizan had obtained, or the Mountain Chalcedony that the system had given him, these were all extremely rare natural treasures. Elder Yi, we've met a lot of cultivators from the Xuanian sect recently. It feels like they're plotting something. Just as the Firebird was about to arrive at Yunhai City, Huang Ling suddenly spoke to Yizan. The Xuanian sect is secretly planning something. Hearing this, Yizan could not help but raise his eyebrows. That's right. I'm sure that Elder Yi is also aware that the Xuanian sect has been frantically recruiting more cultivators over the past few years. Chapter 18. Giving gold. That's right. Is there a relationship between those 2 things? Yizan asked. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Huang Ling said, these new disciples have been placed in the provinces of the Great Qian dynasty. They claim they want to eliminate the bandits there. And the strangest thing is that, they're actually doing it. 3. Everyone was well aware of the Xuanian sect's usual behavior. They acted arrogantly, snatched away magic treasures from others, and made enemies everywhere. Moreover, they made use of their power to distort the truth, which aroused the anger of countless cultivation practitioners. However, because they were too strong, many cultivation practitioners could only be angry but did not dare to speak out against them. If they had sent disciples to steal things from the provinces, no one would find it strange. However, if they really wanted to eliminate the bandits and be chivalrous and righteous, that was odd. These guys would never act benevolently. Why did they care about getting rid of the bandits? Oh, hearing this, Yizan could not help but raise his eyebrows. He could not help but link this matter to the massacre of Yu's village. Could these 2 events be connected? Yizan could not help but stroke his chin and think. If the destruction of Yu's village really had something to do with the Xuanian sect, then he would have another reason to kill them off. However, he could not find any evidence for the time being, so he could only keep this matter to himself. As night slowly fell, Yizan and the others finally arrived at the Yunhai city on the Firebird. Yunhai City was located in the east of the Great Qian dynasty, and it was a place of extreme violence. The reason for that was very simple. Yunhai City was located in the mountain range of the Death Zone, where the Netherworld Forest and Fog Lake met. If Yizan wanted to reach Yunnan Province in the shortest time possible, he would have to cross Yunhai City. Of course, some cultivators with a weaker cultivation level would choose to avoid Yunhai and use a safer route to travel. After all, Yunhai City was different from other places. There were no rules in this city. It could be said that the law of the jungle was strictly followed, and the strong were greatly respected. As long as one was strong enough, they set the rules. The imperial family of the Great Qian dynasty could not be bothered less about this place. After all, Yunhai City was located in a remote area, and they could not do much about it. As long as nothing huge happened, they turned a blind eye to the city. Yunhai City was an extremely chaotic place. If one did not possess a certain level of strength, one would not dare to visit. Huangling and Shui Min had only heard of the city from books and had never set foot in it before. Not long after arrived, they walked down from the back of the Firebird. When Huangling and Shui Min saw that the Firebird entered the space between Yu's eyebrows, they could not help but be shocked. Should the owner of this Firebird not be Elder Yi? Why did Yu own it? Could it be that Elder Yizan had given his mount to Yu? At the thought of this, the two of them could not help but look at each other, their eyes filled with shock. Yu keeping the Firebird was enough to prove that these two had a deep bond. For a moment, Huangling and Shui Min felt their hearts ache and their eyes fill with envy. Elder Yizan was too good to Yu. I'm so torn up about this. If only I was Elder Yi's disciple. Both of them knew each other's intentions very well. If they had not already become Elder Lin Qing's disciples, they would definitely have tried to convince Yizan to accept them as disciples. Think about it. If they could become the disciples of a handsome, talented, and young existence like him, how blissful would that be? For a moment, Huangling and Shui Min felt extremely regretful. Someone as handsome as Elder Yizan was akin to a god in the hearts of countless girls. Yizan did not know what Huangling and Shui Min were thinking. He brought them to Yunhai City. As soon as they entered the city, they heard that there was going to be an auction soon. Countless adventurers gathered in this chaotic city. Most of them were cultivators who had ventured into the Netherworld Forest and the mountains of the Death Zone before. As their gathering place, Yunhai City was naturally filled with countless treasures. It was said that Yunhai City held a small auction every day, and a large-scale auction would be held every 30 days. Right now, it was exactly 30 days since the last auction, so a large-scale auction was about to be held in the city. Yizan and the others found an inn. After settling down, he began to take out all the gold coins in his storage space. Here, take these gold coins. If you see anything you like, buy it. Like a member of the nouveau riche, Yizan threw the pile of gold coins to Yu. Looking at the mountain of gold coins that illuminated the entire room, Yu was completely stunned. Beside her, Huangling and Shui Min could not help but stayed rooted to the spot. It was too much gold, shining bright light onto Yu and the other two. How much were all these gold coins worth when added up? At least tens of millions. Oh my god, Yu was still in a daze. Huangling, who was the first to react, could not help but swallow her saliva. She had never seen such a huge amount of gold coins in her life. For a moment, she was stunned. As expected of an elder of the Qingyun sect. He had so many gold coins, and he was giving them to Yu as pocket money. After all, Yizan had asked Yu to buy whatever she liked. Was it not pocket money? He had even given her so much pocket money. Did that mean he still had more gold coins in his storage ring? Oh my god, why did they not have such a rich master? For a moment, Huangling and Shui Min could not help but look at each other and smile wryly. They felt completely at a loss and like the world was extremely unfair. There was nothing more painful in the world than this. They had clearly met the most perfect master, but he did not want to take them in. As expected, the grass was always greener on the other side. The two of them did not know that this mountain of gold coins was all Yizan had to his name. After his cultivation reached the true core state, gold coins of the secular world were no longer very important to him. He valued the rare cultivation resources more. Of course, if he converted the heavenly treasures in his storage ring into gold coins, he could indeed accumulate a mountain of gold much higher than this one. Chapter 19. Violet Orchid Valley. Silly girl, why aren't you putting it away? Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Yizan smiled and reminded Yu, who was still in a daze. If you did not accept it, he would not be able to get a critical hit from the system's feedback. Thank you, Master. You knew that what her master had given her could not be rejected. She put the mountain of gold into her storage ring. Ding. As the host has given 32,510,000 gold coins to his disciple, you have received a 10-fold feedback critical hit. Congratulations, the host has received 325,100,000 gold coins. The system's voice rang out in Yizan's mind. Hee, it's time to go to the auction house and spend some money. Hearing this, Yizan could not help but smile. He had given all the gold coins in his storage ring to you to obtain a critical hit from the system's feedback, so he would have enough funds to go to the auction house and auction on items. There were 3 major forces in Yunhai City that were the most powerful around, and the auction house was one of them. To be able to carve out a place for oneself in Yunhai City, one needed the auction house on your side. However, that was no simple feat. There was a rumor that an early-stage empty core state cultivator ran the auction house. The headquarters of the auction house was in the center of Yunhai City. In a city where the strong preyed on the weak, being able to occupy such a central area was enough to prove one's majesty. Yizan only put a little bit of pressure on them before the staff of the auction house invited him inside with great respect. Essence Condensation Pill, 1st grade. It can help cultivators refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and transform it into the power of true essence in their core. If cultivators below the 5th stage of true essence state take this pill, they can skip over a few stages. The starting price is 300,000 gold coins. I bid 360,000 gold coins. I bid 390,000. I bid 430,000. As the voice of the sexy female auctioneer rang out, several voices pierced the auction hall. As a 1st grade essence condensing pill so expensive? Witnessing this scene, you could not help but reveal a shocked expression. Although she figured that the price of a 1st grade pill would not be low, she also did not have a good concept of how much gold coins were worth. After all, you had only been with the Qingyan sect for 2 years, so her knowledge and experience were extremely limited. Most of her knowledge outside the sect came from the scripture depository or from the other disciples' discussions. You was a girl who had yet to experience the world. You knew that her father's annual income had been less than 50 gold coins. However, these unremarkable 50 gold coins could easily support her family for the year. In her backward village, if one's annual income was 90 gold coins, they were already considered to be rolling in dough. The price of a mere 1st grade medicinal pill was 300,000 gold coins. This was simply unimaginable to her. If the price of a 1st grade medicinal pill was already so ridiculous, how much would the 3rd grade medicinal pill that Master previously gifted to her be? How about the heavenly and earthly treasures and the gold coins that Master had gifted to her over these past few days, too? How much did the value of those things add up to? Even some cultivators in the core formation state might not possess such wealth, right? Thinking of this, you could not help but put on a complicated expression. Her master treated her so well. Could she really repay her master's kindness in this lifetime? Yizan did not know what Yu was thinking. Looking at the items being auctioned off in the hall, he could not help but feel bored. Although the female announcer had already auctioned off many treasures, and the cultivators in the auction hall were intensely bidding, he was uninterested. Of course, Yizan did not choose to leave. After all, as one of the 3 major forces in Yunhai City, how could the auction hall not have at least a few good things? Fellow cultivators, the item we're about to auction is an extremely rare natural treasure. We call it the Violet Orchid Valley. It's a treasure that even purple spirit state cultivators are extremely envious of, because this treasure can help condense purple chi. It can allow a purple spirit state cultivator to cross a few stages. Most importantly, speaking up to emphasize her point, the female auctioneer deliberately paused for a moment before speaking slowly again. After consuming the Violet Orchid Valley, the probability of a cultivator at the peak of the purple spirit state stepping into the core formation state will increase by 10%. As soon as she finished speaking, the cultivators in the auction hall instantly grew excited. Most of the cultivators had been waiting for this treasure, especially those who had been at the 10th stage of the purple spirit state for many years. Being able to increase the chance of breaking through by 10% was already enough to make them pay any price. Seeing this, a hint of interest appeared in Yizan's rather bored eyes. This Violet Orchid Valley was indeed a rare natural treasure. But, this treasure is still somewhat incomplete. The female auctioneer once again poured cold water on everyone. She spoke slowly. Although the effects of the Violet Orchid Valley are quite powerful, it's still immature and somewhat incomplete. But in any case, it is indeed of great help to Purple Spirit State cultivators. Especially to cultivators below the 10th level of the Purple Spirit State. If you're already at the peak of a lower state, there is an almost 100% chance that you'll immediately jump stages. Although this Violet Orchid Valley doesn't have a 10% chance increase of breaking through for the cultivators of the 10th stage of the Purple Spirit State, the chance increase is still 3% to 4%. Everyone, the starting price of the Violet Orchid Valley is 10 million gold coins. Let the bidding begin. As soon as those words were spoken, the cultivators in the auction house were once again in an uproar. Although this Violet Orchid Valley was immature, it was still extremely useful. It still possessed a fatal allure, especially for Purple Spirit State cultivators. The auction value of the mature Violet Orchid Valley was around 70 million. Some wealthy Purple Spirit State cultivators were even willing to spend 100 million gold coins on it. Very few cultivators would ever choose to auction off a mature Violet Orchid Valley that they had found. Chapter 20. The Evil Blood Sect and Shadow Tower collide. I bid 12 million. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. I bid 16 million. I bid 19 million. For a moment, the auction hall was filled with the sounds of bidding. I, Evil Blood Sect, bid 20 million. A majestic voice suddenly rang out in the auction hall. A powerful pressure slowly spread throughout the room. Everyone's eyes changed when they saw this. It was obvious that the other party was threatening them. To be able to reveal his sect and have such a powerful command of the room, his goals were self-evident. He wanted to warn them that if anyone dared to continue bidding, they would become enemies with the Evil Blood Sect. When everyone heard this, they looked for the source of the voice. They saw that the person who had spoken was a half-naked middle-aged man with a rather muscular body. When the middle-aged man met the gazes of the crowd, his gaze did not change in the slightest. Instead, a cold smile grew on his face. It's actually the Evil Blood Sect. I know this fellow. This fellow is the deputy sect leader of the Evil Blood Sect, Feng Yitai. It's said that this fellow's cultivation has reached the 10th stage of the Purple Spirit State. He's an extremely powerful existence. The most crucial point is that this fellow's cultivation reached the 10th stage of the Purple Spirit State 10 years ago. Without the assistance of special heavenly and earthly treasures, it's practically impossible for him to step into the core formation state. Now that he's seeing such a rare Violet Orchid Valley, he definitely won't give it up. Forget it. The Evil Blood Sect is incomparably powerful. We'd better give up. After all, there's still a final treasure to come. For a moment, everyone's expressions could not help but change. They completely dismissed the idea of bidding against him. Feng Yitai's threat was obvious. If anyone participated in the bidding, they would be completely offending the Evil Blood Sect. Even if they remained alive to bid for it, they might not remain alive to enjoy it. Feng Yitai naturally heard everyone's discussions. When he heard what they were saying, he could not help but smile. At least they knew their place. Otherwise, HMPH. At this moment, a faint voice rang out in the auction hall. I bid 21 million. When Feng Yitai heard this, the smile on his face froze. His eyes immediately turned cold. He was familiar with the owner of this voice. It was the deputy leader of the Shadow Tower, Lin Yu. The Evil Blood Sect and Shadow Tower were extremely powerful. Although they had some connections in Yunhai City, their true headquarters were in Zhaohe City, which was 250 miles away. The most crucial thing was that these two great factions both had cultivators at the early stage of the empty core stage, and they were extremely powerful. Both sides were at odds with each other. Especially since a few months ago, when a great battle occurred between the Evil Blood Sect and Shadow Tower. The leaders of both sides had suffered heavy injuries in this great battle, and neither side had truly won out. They had come to Yunhai City to bid on a medicinal pill in the auction hall. If they could obtain this pill, they would be able to completely heal their leader's injuries. In this way, not only would they be able to obtain victory in the great battle between the two factions, but they might even be able to completely annihilate the other party. I bid 22 million. Feng Yitai's eyes were ice cold as he spoke. 24 million, Lin Yu said indifferently. Both of them were in the 10th stage of the Purple Spirit State. The temptation of the Violet Orchid Valley was no small one. I bid 25 million. Lin Yu, does your Shadow Tower really want to become sworn enemies with our Evil Blood Sect? Feng Yitai could not help but reveal a cold smile when he heard this. His eyes were ice cold as he looked at Lin Yu. Isn't it obvious? I bid 26 million. Lin Yu's gaze was filled with ridicule as he looked at Feng Yitai. He spoke indifferently. HMPH, with your Shadow Tower's strength, do you really have gold to compete with me? Don't tell me that you really want to abandon that medicinal pill for the sake of this incomplete Violet Orchid Valley. Don't you want to cure your leaders? Feng Yitai's lips curled into a cold smile as he spoke. They had come to the auction hall not because of the Violet Orchid Valley, but because of the medicine that was about to be auctioned off. If they spent too many gold coins on the Violet Orchid Valley, they might not have enough to bid for the healing elixir medicine. One had to know that that healing elixir medicine held the life and death of these two great factions. If you're not worried, what's there for me to be afraid of? Lin Yu said calmly. I'll bid 30 million. If you have the guts, then continue to bid. Feng Yitai slowly spat out a bid and then looked at Lin Yu with a smile. When Lin Yu heard this, his expression could not help but change. The Violet Orchid Valley was indeed valuable, but this incomplete item was not worth 30 million. If he spent too many gold coins on it, he might not be able to afford the medicine. On the one hand, it would increase his chances of breaking through to the core formation state. On the other hand, his decision would affect Shadow Tower's future. He already knew what choice he should make. Fine, so what if I give it to you? Lin yowed hot for a while before saying indifferently. 30 million, going once. 30 million, going twice. 30 million, going thrice. Congratulations to the deputy leader of the Evil Blood sect on winning the bid for Violet Orchid Valley. With the words of the female auctioneer, the Violet Orchid Valley finally belonged to Feng Yitai. It's really laughable. Just because you wanted a small chance of breaking through, you actually spent 30 million. Feng Yitai, oh Feng Yitai, you've personally ruined the future of the entire Evil Blood sect. After our leader recovers from his injuries, we'll completely massacre your entire sect. I'm afraid that then, you won't even be alive to enjoy the Violet Orchid Valley. When Lin Yu witnessed this, he could not help but mock him. The two great factions had about the same amount of assets. Now that Feng Yitai had spent 30 million gold coins on the Violet Orchid Valley, how could he possibly compete with him for the healing elixir medicine? Everyone, the item we're going to auction is a third-grade medicinal pill that has a miraculous healing effect. It's called the Soul Returning Pill. This Soul Returning Pill was personally refined by Tier 3 alchemist Master Lin Song. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Master Lin's methods. Even if a cultivator below the core formation state suffers a serious injury, as long as they consume this medicinal pill, they will be able to quickly recover. Even for powerful cultivators at the core formation stage, the pill has a great effect. As long as it doesn't damage the core and bones, it can also heal all external injuries. I announce the starting bid for the Soul Returning Pill is 25 million. Let the bidding begin. As soon as she said that, many cultivators in the auction hall put on excited expressions. The Soul Returning Pill. Hearing this, Yu could not help but be stunned. Was this not the pill that her master had given her when she accepted him as master? Right now, the pill was still quietly lying in her storage space. She did not expect the starting price of that pill to be a terrifying 25 million. Thinking of this, Yu's gaze could not help but fall on Yi Zan. When she saw Yi Zan's incomparably handsome side profile, she could not help but feel like she was in a trance. She could not help but feel like she was in a trance. She could not help